And we are live. Welcome, everybody, to the 1002 Core 2 A+ Study Group pre-show. We will be getting started. I can't even hear myself yet because my headphones are all wired and messed up over here. Here we go. We'll get started about 10 minutes with today's Core 2 Q&A. And I am going to get my headphones on so that I can hear myself. I mean, I can hear myself, but you know what I'm saying. So that I have this in order. We need to get recording. We are not even recording. I've not even done the podcast yet. Let's record. That's not record. That's record. 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 Are we recording? There's our Cylons. Now we're running. Before we were not, but now we are. Okay. Let's get the chat room back up. I'm going to have to do the podcast intro here real quick. There's the podcast. Hey, everybody. Okay, podcast intro. Let's do the podcast intro. Usually I do this before I go live. I'm not sure why I decided not to do that this time, but here we are. You get to sit through it. Let's bring this over. Let's see, we're Core 2. Today is the 4th. That all looks good. I'm James Messer, and you're listening to the Professor Messer 220-1002 Core 2 A+ Study Group. The study group was recorded on August 4th, 2021. If you'd like to watch a video replay, visit my website at professormesser.com. I'm James Messer, and you're listening to the Professor Messer 220-1002 Core 2 A+ Study Group After Show. This after show was recorded on August 4th, 2021. If you'd like to watch a video replay, visit my website at professormesser.com. You think that would be memorized at this point. Why do I need to read from something for that? But I would get it wrong. That's why. I would get it so wrong. Hey, chat room. Hey, everybody. Hey, Canada. How's everybody doing? Hey, Jamaica. Hey, India. Everybody from outside the U.S. is checking in. Let me check my things. I'm waiting on a very important email. Must be from Mrs. Professor Messer. I'm waiting on all kinds of little emails today. I've got all kinds of things in the fire. And, oh, look, I'm live on my channel. That's what my email says. That's useful. That doesn't provide me with any help whatsoever. See, there's Florida. Florida's checked in. And we had one domestic check-in so far. There's the Bahamas. Welcome. Texas is here. Now we got some folks checking in from here in the United States. Hello, St. Vincent. Curious about my PC specs. This is an old machine in front of me. This is an old iMac Pro. It is well over 2 years old now. It's got to be close to 3 years. It's time for an upgrade, but I'm waiting on the new ones to be rolled out. So, but the machine that's in front of me, the one that I'm using currently, let's do a quick Apple, because it's a Mac. Let's do a quick about. This is a 2.3 gigahertz 18-core Intel Xeon W. 128 gig of memory. It is 128 gig of 2666 DDR4 memory. And a Radeon Pro Vega 6416 gig. It's remarkable, being well over 2 years old at this point, that it is just it just really can handle almost anything I throw at it. All the 4K stuff I do on it is done on this machine. So it's able to handle it. Would it be faster if it was newer? Yeah, it'd be much better. There'd be many more things I could do from a video editing perspective. But for what we are doing with it, it works fantastic. The streaming software I'm using is OBS. It's over here. There it is. That's the OBS front end. It's actually a machine that's in the other room, but that's the video that's there. Yeah, I over-engineer these machines that I buy just a little bit, just a tad, because it's so much better to have more than not enough. And once you're purchasing these days, you sort of get locked in. Yeah, I'm waiting on the M1 update for the iMac 27-inch. And that's probably what I will go to, although there are rumors of the Mac Pros also being available shortly. There's our 5-minute warning. 5 minutes, Mr. Sinatra. But that's one I'm just keeping my eye on. It's time for an upgrade. I've got budget allocated for an upgrade, but like most things, if there is a disadvantage to Apple, there's advantages and disadvantages to everybody, of course. But one of the disadvantages of Apple hardware is you have to wait for Apple to make the hardware. Then once they have it, it's great. And I could get away with a older Mac Pro. I think they've been updating some of the Mac Pros. The MacBook Pro is also, I think I bought them about the same time. So it's about a couple of years old too. It needs an update too because it has a horrible keyboard. But it works really well. I'm just dragging. It doesn't do a lot. I don't do video editing on here. If anything, it's sort of a utilitarian machine. Probably does not even need to be a Mac Pro at this point. But it's my backup. If something was to happen here and I needed to do editing, it could do the editing. So that was my idea behind it. But I'd love to get a newer MacBook Pro with a bigger screen, so I can see it. These little babies, this little 15-inch screen, so tiny, so beansy. I'd love a 16 or 17-inch. That would be great. Corey in the chat room, $5 donation. Thank you so much for the super chat. Got your A+ cert, scored a 706, brought it home. You studied just the right amount, by the way. Passed the exam, A+ certified, locked in. Congratulations. That's the real key. Doesn't matter what your score is, as long as it's on the plus side, as long as it's on the green side, you're in good shape. So that's fantastic. And from South Africa, we've got a 70s contribution as well. Hey, Professor, passed my Network Plus today. So you are Network Plus and A+ certified. Congratulations. Thank you for your support of the course notes as well. I appreciate that. I'm glad it helped out. It's fantastic. This is great. I always love to hear the stories like we passed, we got it, we did it. We just went through that flurry here at the end of the month of Security Plus because the 501 got retired. So a lot of people were working on their 501. It was great having all these people send me notes saying, I got it, I got it, I got it. Some people said, I didn't get it. I got to do the 601. Well, that happens. I've failed plenty of certification exams in my time. So it's just one where, okay, let me dust myself off. Let's do this again. No problem. We got it. So that's fantastic. Thanks. Thank you also for the super chat. We do appreciate that. We now also have super thanks on all of our videos. Part of the beta, thanks to you folks for liking and subscribing. YouTube sent me a beta notification that the super thanks has been added to all of my videos. So if you're watching one of my videos on YouTube and you think this is pretty good, let me throw these guys $1 or $2. You can hit the super thanks and attach a comment to that video, which is kind of nice. Sort of like super chat, except offline. That's what they did, which I thought was a pretty good idea. We've had a couple of people use it. I haven't even talked about it. I just put it there, and if people use it, that's great. If they don't, that's fine too. We'll work through all of those. A few more check-ins coming through. We had Lauderdale. Welcome. So good to have you here. I missed my days in South Florida. Nepal, Trinidad, Tobago. You've got Georgia, assuming it's the one that is near Florida. Jersey. We've got more folks checking in. Nepal. We've got plenty of Q&A today for the 221,002. I need to do a final check, though. Recording. Gadsden County, Georgia, Gadsden County, Florida. Now I have to scroll back to see the reference. We need threads in the chat, don't we? We need to maybe shift it a bit and be able to figure that out. Hello, Reykjavik. Hello, Germany. Hello, Plant City. Ready for some strawberries. Hello, Maryland. My Maryland. Good to have you here. Sacramento, welcome. Hello, India. All right, it's about time for a live stream. I need to, do I have the right graphics up? Let's find out, everybody. Gadsden County, Florida, there you go. Let's look quickly, since we're top of the hour, at my media. Yeah, that looks right. I think we can do a live stream. We need to get this set up with Keynote. We need a green light here. Did we get one? Did we get one? Did we get a green light? I tested this earlier and I got a green light. So what happens now? No green light. We're waiting on the green light. It's talking to my MacBook, or it says it is. There we see. There. What in the world's going on? Okay, now. It's so slow. Is this on the wrong network? One of these is on the wrong network. What is going on? That's on a studio network. This. Bear with me, everybody. We will get through me trying to figure things out. Nope, everything's on the right network. Just go. That's a little more responsive now. Who knows what was going on? Who knows what's happening? It's time for live stream, everybody. Let's go. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the August 2021 Professor Messer A+ study group, specifically our Core 2 A+ study group. That would be questions and answers coming to you from the 220-1002 CompTIA exam objectives. Thanks for joining us. My name is James Messer, and in this video, we will go through questions and answers that I have dreamed up. They're all brand new. You've never seen these before. It's questions that come directly from the exam objectives. And since you're here live, if you are watching this live, you can participate interactively. You can answer questions online. If you're watching this on the replay, you can still follow along. You just can't answer the questions on the replay as you do if you're live. So make sure you check in live. Go to professormesser.com/calendar. I have to remember my own links to have that there. How smart are you? Let's find out. Open up a new browser window. Go to this URL to answer the questions today. That URL is professormesser.com/QA. professormesser.com/QA. That will get you there. You could also use an app because you need one. The app is in the Google Play or Apple App Store, or your favorite app store for the device that you happen to be using. It's called the Socrative Student app because it's a service called Socrative and you're the student. So that's the one you need. It will ask you for a room name. Make sure you get the room name right. The room name is Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER. Make sure you spell it right, or that's not going to work. For those asking in the chat room, it's not a green screen, it's not a blue screen. That's my real background. My background is behind me. It seems unusual that we get that question a lot, but there it is. Let's see if you do all of those things right. You go to the URL, you have your app. There's a question there that should be waiting for you. The question is what we call our rewind question because it's a question from last month. We do this to see if you're able to get into the Q&A and be able to answer the questions. The question asks, a macOS support administrator is troubleshooting a remote user's Windows desktop. Which of the following would most likely be used for this connection? Would it be RDP, VNC, Telnet, SMB, or SSH? Now, the important part at professormesser.com/QA is where you answer this question, but please, no answers in the chat room. Please, no hints in the chat room. We will come back to this question in just a moment. So we will figure out all of those details. Thank you for being here. We're not able to do a lot of interaction or interactive Q&A if there's no one here to interact with. So you being here is such a great thing. During the week, we have all kinds of A+ things happening. You, of course, can get a daily pop quiz question on Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter. You can also get the same question on Instagram, professormesser.com/Instagram, except it comes with a pretty picture, which is nice. We also have, of course, on YouTube, there's always new videos coming out, including these live streams. If you want to be notified when those live streams are happening, feel free to subscribe and they'll just show up in your notification bar, in your inbox, however you like to be notified from YouTube. It will tell you when all of those things are happening. So that should get you at least started on some of the things we're doing. Of course, we're adding a lot more videos here before the end of the year, so make sure you subscribe there. The exams that we are discussing today are the CompTIA A+ exams, the 220-1001 and 220-1002. It was released in January 15th, 2019, which means you can estimate the retirement date of A+ to be July of 2022. However, things have pushed a bit with what's been going on over the past year and a half. And you will find that if you look at the exams for Security Plus and even the upcoming Network Plus, you'll notice that they've been pushed a little bit. So I would not be surprised if this one pushes a little bit. But the important thing is that you've got a year. So if you're thinking of taking this exam right now, as we sit here in August of 2021, go ahead and keep studying. This is the exam you want to take. You can earn your A+ well before there is any retirement of any exam. There's 2 exams you have to take. One is the 221,001. You have to score 675 on a scale from 100 to 900. And there will be the exam we'll talk about today, which is the 221,002, where you need to score a 700, just a little bit more, on a scale from 100 to 900. This is at least both of these exams cover different topics. So if you're wondering what you should be studying for the exams, make sure you have the objectives. It's at professormesser.com/objectives. That's your link at the bottom of the screen. If you are here live, there is Super Chat, and Jason in the chat room, along with some others already in the pre-show, have contributed. Jason, thank you for the $4.99 contribution in the Super Chat. We sure appreciate it. Didn't even put a message in there. He doesn't even want to say anything. He just wants to contribute, and I can appreciate that. Thank you so much. Every penny goes back to keeping these lights on, so we appreciate all of your support. The other things that you will notice that we go through today are all the topics for the 221,002. So all the questions today will be operating systems, security, software troubleshooting, and operational procedures. So those will be the 4 areas, the 4 domains, CompTIA calls them, that we will be talking about today. And I've got plenty of questions that come from all 4 of those domains. Of course, all of my training videos, every minute of every video is available for you to watch for free online. There's no registration. There's no nothing that I hold back. There's nothing behind a paywall. Everything is out there for you to watch. You just have to visit YouTube or visit my website and click the link, and you can get trained. That's how easy it is. That's our goal, is to provide you with what you need to be able to pass these exams and get a job or get a better job. But I realize that some of you would like an offline version of these. Maybe you need some additional study materials like my course notes, like my practice exams. All of these are available as part of my success bundle. So I've just put everything into one big pile and said, here, you can buy everything all in one. Go to professormesser.com/1002success or follow the links on my website for more information about the success bundle. On my website are free questions. You've got plenty of questions there that you can go through. Those questions, hundreds of questions, come from A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus study groups, and I tend to archive some of those and create new ones as we go. So plenty of free Q&A. You should always try that out before sitting down and taking an actual exam. We also have a podcast audio-only version of these study groups available. So if you have a podcast listening program, you can subscribe at professormesser.com/podcast. You can also play the podcast versions from there as well in a streaming website. So either way, whatever works with you is available at professormesser.com/podcast. You may also notice on YouTube that there are timestamps about a day later. Suddenly, magically, timestamps appear in the video description. Here's a good example of some from a previous study group. Those timestamps are created by my marketing manager, Lori, who has to sit through this whole thing and listen to us. She speeds it up, so it goes relatively fast. She gets to hear me talking very quickly. Hi, Lori. Everybody say hi to Lori. She is busy making these for every single study group we do, and you can go back years to find these timestamps. It's a very quick way to find things you may be looking for in the study groups. Very nice to have that functionality there as well. If you are on my website, one thing you may have noticed, we recently added voucher discounts. You don't need a special coupon code. You don't have to hunt around the internet. You don't have to add a plug-in into your browser. They're just discounted. They're just already there and discounted for you. So do not pay full price for a voucher at the CompTIA website. You can simply get a voucher for less money by going to professormesser.com/vouchers. And I'll be glad to give you a voucher for a discount without you having to jump through any hoops, without you having to hunt around for a coupon code. You can tell that's a little bit of my pet peeve. Everybody gets a discount. Everybody gets a discount. Also, since you're buying it from my site, I thought I'd sweeten the pot just a little bit. And if you purchase a voucher from my site, you get a copy of my Exam Hacks ebook for free. This is about 14 different tips and tricks that you can use during your studies, during the exam, and even after the exam to maximize the number of points you can score on a CompTIA exam. So whether you're taking an A+, a Network Plus, Security Plus, or any other CompTIA exam, they all follow the same format, and I've captured all of those little life hacks in this Exam Hacks ebook. Comes with it for free. You just get it if you purchase the voucher from my site. You can find that at professormesser.com/vouchers. Let's now go back to that question we were talking about. A macOS support administrator is troubleshooting a remote user's Windows desktop. Which of the following would most likely be used for this connection? And I gave you options of RDP, VNC, Telnet, SMB, and SSH. So let's see the results. How did we do on this one? 59% of you say it's RDP. 17% of you said VNC. 14% said SSH. 3% said SMB. And 7% said Telnet. So that's one, if you're ever in a situation where you're trying to figure out what is used to connect and view a remote user's Windows desktop, I think most of you got this one pretty spot on. It is the Remote Desktop Protocol, or RDP. Remote Desktop Protocol is extensively used for Windows, connecting to Windows devices and being able to share the screen, view what's going on. This is how you're connecting to the device. The Windows device is the one with the remote desktop service running. So you're simply connecting that device to or from any other operating system you might be using. So you might be on a Linux machine, you might be on an iOS device, you might be on an Android tablet, you could be on Mac OS, like this question, and you can connect to that remote device using the Mac OS remote desktop connection on Mac. So this is one you have to think about what you're connecting to and use the appropriate protocol for what you're connecting to, because the Windows machine doesn't know VNC by default. I guess you could load up VNC, but that's not what's built into Windows. SSH is not built into Windows unless you turn that on or load up an SSH service. Telnet certainly should never be used for any type of remote communication. Maybe used for some testing, but not remote communication. We use Telnet a lot on the security side, but we don't actually Telnet with it. So that gives you an idea of how useful Telnet is to be able to do remote communication. And SMB, server message block, is the method that Windows uses to send files, print jobs, and other Windows-related media-type requests. So the answer here, most of you got this one spot on. 62% of you got it absolutely right. It is Remote Desktop Protocol. That is the right one. So well done. You either remembered the things we talked about last week or last month, or you absolutely were familiar enough with how Windows works to know, of course, it's Remote Desktop Protocol. You would use VNC if you were connecting to a Mac OS device or connecting perhaps to a Linux device that was running a VNC service. Mac OS has VNC built in to its system. So when you enable on a Mac that you want to support remote connections or remote control, VNC is the default that is used for that. It is integrated into the Mac OS Finder as well. So you don't have to actually load a VNC client in Mac OS. It's just built into the OS. It's all there. It's just built in on the Mac side. You don't even have to think about it. You don't even know it's VNC unless you're connecting to that Mac from somewhere else. Let's now have some new questions. New questions this would be a good one. These questions that you will find on your exam, there's a handful you get at the very beginning of your exam. And this handful of questions at the beginning is what CompTIA calls a performance-based question. It is not a multiple choice question. This was a multiple choice question. It was a question with multiple possible answers to choose from. So the problem with that is that People can remember and memorize those. What if you got a question that was not multiple choice? What if it was a fill in the blank, or you had to perform a function at the command line, or you had to drag and drop, or you had to match or put things in a particular order, or really anything else associated with that? So the thing that I like to do on these study groups, the very first new question on these study groups, I like to make a performance-based question. So here is a brand new performance-based question of the month. This is a matching question in a similar style and vein to the actual exam. This question asks, match the utility to the description. I have 4 utilities and I have 7 descriptions. So already you can tell it's not a one-to-one. There will be descriptions left over at the end, which makes it a little bit harder to do the matching, doesn't it? You could get all of them wrong because they don't match up the way they really should. You've got too many options. There will be some left over, but that's very similar to what the exam might do to you. So let's go through each of these utilities and descriptions. I'll describe them for the people who are listening on the podcast. The 4 utilities are DISM, SFC, check disk, GP result. And then you have 7 different descriptions. The first is verify a computer configuration setting. The second is manage the configuration of a volume. The third is prepare a drive before storing files. The fourth is replace a corrupted system file. The next is move to a different working directory. The sixth is fix an invalid file system index. And the last one is manage drivers in a WIM file. So very quickly, let's go through those again. It's DISM, SFC, check disk, and GP result. And the 7 different descriptions are verify a computer configuration setting, manage the configuration of a volume, prepare a drive before storing files, replace a corrupted system file, move to a different working directory, fix an invalid file system index, and manage drivers in a WIM file. Now, if you think you already know the answers and they're already in the order that they appear on the screen, then the answer would be 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D. You can just put that in and you're good to go. So that might be useful for finding this. It's very quick. You don't have to type in the whole thing as you go through this. A few questions in the chat room while we're waiting for the answers to come in on this. Since Network Plus is expiring on August 31st, does that mean I can't take it after that date? Well, Network Plus is not expiring on August 31st. Network Plus, the current N10007, is scheduled to retire on the summer of 2022. So you have a year before Network Plus goes away. Well, that was easy, wasn't it? So we went from it goes away at the end of this month to it goes away a year from now. So the question is, does that mean I can't take it after that date? Well, you can't take it after the exam has been retired, but the retirement date is indeed the summer of 2022. So you've got a long time before you even have to worry about that. I realize there are some websites on the internet, third-party sites that are not mine and that are not CompTIA's, that are telling people that the Network Plus is retiring on August the 31st, and they are completely incorrect. So you may want to tell a website that you run across that is giving bad information that they are indeed not correct and need to fix that. Because that will be important for you if you're planning to take Network Plus. I think the keeping track of the retirement dates is very important. If you're ever wondering what it is, CompTIA will post it on their website as soon as they have it publicly available. So go to the CompTIA website for always to get the real deal. Because third-party sites constantly get these things wrong for some reason. I don't know why, because it's publicly available information, but there it is. You never know. It's the internet. That's why. Let's see how you did with this performance-based question. Let's go through all 4 of these utilities, and let's see how they match up to these descriptions. Let's start with the DISM command. This is if you're ever in a situation where you need to work with an image that you have built in Windows. The deployment imaging, servicing, and management utility will allow you to manage drivers in a Windows image. That's what that utility allows you to do. It's one of the things that utility allows you to do is manage drivers in a Windows image. You can create Windows images from this. You can verify them. You can change different aspects of the image using that management utility. An incredibly useful tool. If you get into a lot of deployment scenarios where you are deploying Windows, you're creating images and then sending those out to other devices, you'll be using that utility quite a bit. So it's a pretty useful utility. Make sure you're familiar with it. And you could be asked about what that utility happens to do. And this is just one of the many things that utility can do. That was answer G, manage drivers in a WIM file. Second on our list was SFC. SFC. This is our system file checker. And just like if you knew that, if you knew it was system file checker, you could probably match it with answer D, replace a corrupted system file. That's what it does. So if you want to be able to work with your operating system and confirm that none of your important system files were modified in some way or corrupted, either with an issue with your system or perhaps through malware, you run an SFC, it will tell you. And then it will give you the option to replace that file and fix everything up. Great little utility, especially if you're recovering from malware. Fourth on our list is CHKDSK. I sort of gave it away as check disk because that's what it is. It's the check disk utility. And you can use check disk to do a couple of major things to your system. The first is to evaluate the index of your file system and make sure there are no logical errors with the index. You can think about having an index or a database of cards, and somehow you might get the cards mixed up, or maybe a card might be torn a little bit. You need to fix that card. That's effectively one of the things CheckDisk can do, is they can go through your index, and if they find anything that doesn't look quite right, it can fix the index, so there's no problem there. The other part that CheckDisk will do, if you give it the right parameters, it will check your physical hard drive for any type of physical errors. It will look at every sector and make sure they can read and write from every sector. So that's another important function. If you're ever wondering, is this drive running okay? I don't have drive diagnostics with me, or I'd like to do a very quick diagnostic of the drive, CheckDisk may be a good option for you. And that was answer F, fix an invalid file system index. And then we have GP result is the fourth one on our list. GP result will be answer A, verify a computer configuration setting. The way that you would ever manage systems in an Active Directory environment is through group policy. Group policy is the series of policies that you can push out to other people's machines to be able to allow or disallow that machine from performing certain functions. So it's really the core of the Microsoft enterprise and using Active Directory. It's what allows us to manage these environments of hundreds of thousands of systems all from one person's desktop effectively. Really, it's multiple people's desktop, but you know what I'm saying. You can verify the configuration settings of that device and set policies on that device using these methods of management that involve group policy. So GP result gives you the results of a group policy configuration. There's a number of other group policy things we need to know about. So that's another good one too. So we had three that we didn't use. There were three that were left over. One was manage the configuration of a volume. The other is prepare a drive before storing files. And the last one is move to a different working directory. So although we didn't have a match for those, let's make a match for those. It'll be sort of an extra credit thing for us. So B, answer B, manage the configuration of a volume. What could we use to do that? There are a number of different ways to make that happen. I wrote one down that was a command line function of diskpart, which is the disk partition utility, or allow you to manage disk partitions from the command line. Diskpart will allow you to create partitions, remove, you can format drives with it. It's effectively the same functionality you have in disk configuration at the graphical side, except we can do it at the command line using diskpart. So if you're doing something where it's automated or you just don't have access to the graphical desktop, it's an easy way to do it using diskpart. Next on this is prepare a drive before storing files. Well, I just mentioned the process of formatting a drive with a file system, and that's what I would use to prepare that drive, is to use format. Now, I guess you could also prepare a drive with something like fdisk, although we don't use fdisk anymore, we use diskpart. So I would accept diskpart for both manage the configuration of a volume and prepare a drive before storing files, but I also put format there just so you can get some options. So we're learning here, right? So we'll get some different things that you might be faced with. And the last thing on our list, move to a different working directory. That means we need to change the directory and use the cd command to change the directory. So hopefully those are some that came to mind when you saw those particular descriptions. And if they didn't come to mind, then, well, they're stuck in there now, right? So now we have all 7 of them covered. Hopefully you were able to get some of them right. In the chat room, some folks are even asking, do you get partial credit on these? Because maybe you got some of them right and some of them wrong. Well, CompTIA does have a frequently asked questions file on their website where they answer this question quite definitively. They say, maybe sometimes we will give partial credit. They also say maybe sometimes we won't give partial credit. So there's your answer. They've at least told you that it's possible. So what you're saying is that it's possible. That is what they are saying. They are saying it is possible. But they don't say when it's possible, and they definitely don't tell you when they are doing it. So there you go. You've got a few things there that you'll have to work through. That's a challenge. But hopefully this has given you a feel for some of the things you might be asked on the actual exam with performance-based questions. I would recommend, if you're interested in more of these, go back to all of the previous years' worth of study groups. We do a different performance-based question every month. And so I try to mix things up just a little bit whenever you go through there. So at least there's an option. Hopefully you did pretty well with your performance-based question. Let's now shift gears, though, and do a multiple-choice-based question. This multiple-choice-based question asks, a user gains access to a wireless network using a PIN, P-I-N. Which of the following would describe this authentication method? Is it 802.1x? Is it PSK? Is it WPS? Is it DHCP? Is it WPA2? A user gains access to a wireless network using a PIN, P-I-N. I'm spelling it for the people on the podcast. I realize those of you watching can see that it says P-I-N. Which of the following would describe this authentication method? Is it 802.1x, PSK, WPS, DHCP, and WPA2? Now, if you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. That's your link that's right there on the screen, and lock in your answer right there. Please, no questions in the chat room. Please, no answers in the chat room. Please, no hints in the chat room. We'll figure out all of these as we go through, but we will know at least that we'll be able to walk through these. This is one, by the way, that all of those answers are real things. I didn't make up any of those. I try not to make up answers. Sometimes I do, but I try not to make up all the answers. So please, if you don't recognize any of those, make sure that you go through and try to understand what all of them are. We're going to step through all of them at the end of this question. So just so you're aware what all of them are. I've been fighting with my earbuds this morning. I apologize. You see me. They aren't talking to me. There's nobody in the control room talking to me. It's me trying to get these things stuck in my ear. And I think I figured it out. It is right here in the side of the suitcase. Oh, this could go south very quickly if we start doing that. That's not the live stream we came for. We'll have to figure out those pieces. CompTIA does do that as well. They do put real things in the answers. Very rarely do they put an answer that's not a thing, doesn't exist, which is why I do that. I try to duplicate or not duplicate, but emulate. I try to get the same feel as their questions and the same style as some of the things they ask. So you will see similarities on your exam. Obviously, we're sort of looking at them in the context of a study group. Complexity aside, the format is similar. The voice, I try to make similar to their questions. Some of their questions are a little bit longer than this. This is 2-sentence questions. Some on your exam will be 2-sentence questions, but in this case, not the case. Let's see how you did with this one. Let's take a look at the question again. A user gains access to a wireless network using a PIN. Which of the following would describe this authentication method? The answers are 802.1x, PSK, WPS, DHCP, and WPA2. How did you respond? 53% of you, just over half, said WPS. 26% of you say that's WPA2. 16% said PSK. We've got 5% that said 802.1x, and 0%, exactly nobody, said DHCP. Good for you, because it's definitely not DHCP. DHCP is the Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol that we commonly use to automate the process of assigning IP addresses to devices. And this has nothing to do with assigning an IP address to a device. This question is about getting access to a wireless device using a PIN. A PIN is a personal identification number. For those of you that don't know that one, if you've got an ATM card that you use to get money, that's how we used to get money. It's how we used to obtain money, is through a device called an ATM. We used a personal identification number as an authentication method. We do a similar thing, or can do a similar thing, with wireless networks, because there is a standard that allows it. 52% of you say WPS is that thing that you would use. And I think that's probably a pretty good option there. This is Wi-Fi protected setup. We used to call it, way back in the day, Wi-Fi simple config. And I think they realized this isn't really that simple. Let's not call it Wi-Fi simple config. It sort of doesn't really explain what it is. Wi-Fi protected setup sounds so much better, although, as we found, it wasn't as protected as we were really hoping. The idea is to make it so much easier to configure and connect to a wireless network. The problem is that a lot of these older systems and drivers were asking for hexadecimal numbers and values. They were asking, some of them had passphrases, some of them didn't use passphrases. There was not a lot of standardization across all of these. So this was an attempt to standardize the method that people could use to connect to a wireless network using WPS. There were a lot of different ways you could do this. One was to use a PIN. We talked about that already. The PIN is configured on the access point, and then you would type in the personal identification number on your machine. It would connect. You wouldn't need a password. You wouldn't need anything extra. It would now finally connect to that access point. Some access points have a button on them. You get near the device, you push the button, and then the device can connect to it, which just sounds like a bad idea, doesn't it? Because it is. Near field communication, you can bring the mobile device close to the access point. I don't know that I ever saw an access point support NFC. There has to be one because it's part of the standard. I'm sure somebody did it. But I never saw one in the field, never saw one live being used. And there used to be a method, it's no longer part of the standard, where you could take a USB drive, plug it into the access point. I think it'd probably put a certificate on there that you would then take over to your machine, plug USB in. Another bad idea. Brought to you by our friends at IEEE. It seemed like a good idea at the time. As it turns out, it turned out to be a bad idea, especially with the personal identification number had a limited range of numbers that it could possibly be. And it turned out to have a lot of vulnerabilities for people to be able to gain access to an access point without having to know the password. These days, they've helped a little bit by adding some brute force capabilities into your access points, but it doesn't help you on those older systems. So WPS, although great idea, if you could possibly get away with not using it, I would recommend that you do not. So turn it off on your access point. Be able to just disable WPS functionality and you'll be fine. In fact, I had to enable it on my access point just to give you this image where it was access. In fact, that is the PIN. There you go. There's my access point PIN. If you need to gain access to my access point, but you won't get in there because I've not only disabled the PIN method, my access point even realized, hey, do you really want to turn that on or off? Let's turn that off, shall we? So although it does have a personal identification number, I can use other aspects of WPS, but the personal identification number will not work. And I don't think mine has a pair button, but it does show here a connection option is using that pair button. So at least you have options, right? I think the best option is just to turn that off completely. I think that's a really good option. Now, why would it be one of these others? 26% of you said WPA2. WPA2 is the encryption method, although there is some authentication functionality built into this as well. WPA2 handles that for 802.11 networks, but WPA2 does not include the capability of adding a personal identification number to provide authentication. Doesn't work that way. So you can use a passphrase and you can use other methods as well, but WPA2 and personal identification number would not be the best fit for this question. We also have PSK, a pre-shared key is what that particular PSK abbreviation means. The pre-shared key is probably what you're using on your access points at home, where you assign a key. Oh, our wireless network. Oh, well, what's the password for the network? Do you have a password? That's what we're asking for, is the pre-shared key. Oh, yeah, it's Ninja 1. Oh, okay, Ninja 1. Okay, I'm in. That's a pre-shared key. It's a key that you created earlier that you share with others. Very, if it sounds like it's not secure, it's very insecure. Super insecure, which is why we don't use pre-shared keys at work. You ever notice at work, nobody says, what's the password for the wireless network? Because there isn't one. At work, you use 802.1x. This is an authentication method for network access control, where you would then input the normal username and password you have from a centralized database. Most likely in your network, it's probably Active Directory. It's the same username and password you use for everything. So you would use that username and password to gain access to the wireless network using 802.1x. So you configure your access point. Don't use PSK. Don't use WPS. Use 802.1x. And when somebody asks for a username and password, ask that Windows Active Directory machine over there via LDAP or via Radius or via whatever method you can and have available to be able to query that database. That's how they figure it out, and that's why everybody can use their own authentication, which makes it so much easier. When somebody leaves the organization, you just turn off their account. Instantly, they lose access to the wireless network and anything else that they are authenticating to via 802.1x or otherwise. Also in this list, we already talked about DHCP and why that would not be the right answer. Obviously, answer C, WPS is the right answer, and 54% of you got those absolutely right. Well done. Let's do another multiple choice question. Here's one that asks, a user is complaining of an application crashing multiple times a day. Which of the following would provide a summary of these issues? Would it be Task Manager, Performance Monitor, Safe Mode, Disk Utility, Reliability Monitor? Got a few options there. A user is complaining of an application crashing multiple times a day. Which of the following would provide a summary of these issues? Would it be Task Manager, Performance Monitor, Safe Mode, Disk Utility, and Reliability Monitor? If you think you know the answer, please do not answer in the chat room. You want to answer by visiting this URL that's on your screen right now, professormesser.com/QA. Go right there. I can't put it over it because it hides it. So I'll put it on top. Right there. There's your URL. I'll circle it so that you can see that's the URL you go to lock in your answer. We're doing pretty well. We're in the mode now of answering the questions online. So you're doing really good with that. This is one that you'll obviously run into. This is a common problem that people are having this one application. It breaks constantly. I'm working in the app, it just disappears. Or I'm working in the app and it gives me an error on the screen, and then I click OK and it goes away. How annoying. So one of the things you can do is use one of these utilities to provide a summary of these issues. That's the best I can do, is just repeat the question. That's not really helpful, is it? But that's all I got. That's all I'm going to do for you. I do have others we can talk about. Lock in your answer, professormesser.com/QA. Lock it in. This is a good one, by the way. It's one of my favorites. You've probably heard me talk about this before. So there you go. Casio5 in the chat room went and disabled WPS on their router for good measure. Good for you. And it didn't have the WPS pin option. As far as you know, there was no option to disable it. If you look at the bottom of your router or the back, see if there's not a pin number, redundant on the back of it or the bottom of it. I'll bet you'll find a pin on there somewhere. Because that's how you do it. You show up somebody's house like, oh, there's the PIN number. Now I'm on their network. But you have to have physical access to be able to do that. It might be something to go through. Let's see how you did with this question. So, and check, I want to hear back, Casio 5. Tell me if there's not a pin somewhere on that router somewhere. He's Casio 5. I will investigate. Magnifying glass emoji. So we know, he's on it because there's an emoji involved. The question again, a user is complaining of an application crashing multiple times a day. Which of the following would provide a summary of these issues? Is it Task Manager, Performance Monitor, Safe Mode, Disk Utility, or Reliability Monitor? 43% of you say it's Performance Monitor would be a summary of these issues. 38% say Reliability Monitor, which sounds fake. 16% say Task Manager. 2% said Disk Utility, and 1% say Safe Mode. So hardly anybody said Disk Utility and Safe Mode. Obviously, one of these has got to be right, but we don't have a majority. What would we use to get a summary of crashes on a system? Well, obviously, we need to have some way to monitor these. This is an obvious problem. In fact, it's clearly written in the exam objectives that this is a problem you have to know how to solve. Application crashes. The application stops working. And as I mentioned, it might give you an error message. It might not give you an error message. Thank you, Windows. It just disappears. It just goes away. You get nothing on your screen. Suddenly it was here and then it's gone. Now you could look through the event log, the event viewer in Windows. And on Linux, you could go to your log file. And Mac OS, you can go to the console. Windows, you could go to the event viewer. Have you ever tried to go to the event viewer and view multiple cases of an application failing? It's almost impossible. It is so difficult to be able to see a summary of every time. Let's say you just want to see every time this application has crashed during the last 24 hours. Show me a summary of that. So complicated because it's just full of information. It's like trying to find those proverbial needles in the haystack. It's so difficult. So event viewer, not a great option to be able to do this. Certainly not to get a summary. So what you would use is Reliability Monitor, such as Gold. It is a summary, a beautiful view. In fact, that's the screenshot of Reliability Monitor that shows every case where you had problems with applications over time. It effectively takes what's in your event log and makes it something you can actually understand. So it kind of works in comparison. Here's a better view of the Reliability Monitor. So you can see all of the critical, warning, informational events. They are on the screen by date and time. You can view it by days, view it by weeks. You can click on any one of these and it will drill down into them and show you the events associated with that particular crash. How easy, so simple to have that there. This is a great little utility that I think not too many people are aware of. I'm glad it's in the CompTIA exam objectives because it can save you a lot of time. A lot of time. So go to Windows 7 and above, and I think you've got access to that. So all modern, all recent versions. You can open it by going to your search in Windows and going to the Reliability Monitor. But it is also in your control panel. If you look at all control panel items under the Action Center, which of course is where all of your action movies are. And then under there would be the Reliability Monitor, the Action Center. Not a lot of action in the Action Center, I found. But this is in the Action Center. And the easiest way, the way I do it, is you go to the start, you type reliability, and there it is, and you click it. That's how we do everything now. We go to the search and we type event, there it is, click it. That's what we do. Or right-click it and run as administrator. That's sort of what we're doing when we work with these. Reliability Monitor, an amazing little utility. Indeed, answer E, 39% of you chose Reliability Monitor. That was the right one. So Performance Monitor got 44% of the vote, though. So why isn't it Performance Monitor? That would be sort of something you could pop up and it would monitor things for you. The problem is you would have to start Performance Monitor before the problem happened to be able to capture statistics that occurred when the problem happened. So you can't go back in time. So performance monitor isn't going to help you very much. You want to be able to show up at someone's desk and they say, this application has crashed 3 times. Oh, well, let's see what's been going on. Let's bring up reliability monitor and see if we can find out more information about your problem. If you were to bring up performance monitor, it would show you plenty of statistics from that point forward, but it would not show you statistics and information going back in time. And in fact, performance monitor may not give you what you're looking for because it does not measure application crashing information. It measures CPU, it measures memory, it certainly measures metrics that can help you solve application crashes, but not the best one to use in this particular scenario. Task Manager shows you what's happening right now, like instantly. What is second by second? How is your system running? How's the CPU? How's the network? How's the memory? How's all of these other statistics that we can put in there? Task Manager, fantastic for finding out what's happening right now, what's using the most memory on my machine right now, what's using the most amount of CPU on my machine right now. Task Manager is a right now kind of product. So that's the utility you would use to be able to identify something at this very second, but does not help you for going back in time and looking at a summary of crashes. Safe mode is how you would start your computer and have it only load what's required to get the basic operating system running. That does not help you get a summary of crashes. It might help you avoid some kind of crashes or solve a boot problem, but it's not going to help you with these random application crashes. And then disk utility is a useful utility for managing drives and storage devices on your computer, but helps you not at all with getting a summary of application crashes. The best thing to use in that scenario is, according to these 5 things, the thing that you would use would be reliability monitor, and 39% of you got that one absolutely right. Well done. Well done with that one. Well, as some of you have seen, these questions are many and varied. And if you've ever taken practice questions from some other site, one of the things, I just got an email today where somebody said, I went through your course notes and I took a practice exam somewhere else, and nothing in these practice exams looked familiar to what I just read in your course notes, so your course notes must be bad. So I had to explain to them, actually, it's the questions you took that were bad, which is a common problem. If you go out on the internet, the questions you will run into are, in some cases, just awful. I don't even understand why they're out there. So one of the things that I did was write you some questions that were really good, that were focused on exam objectives, that had a similar style and feel to an actual exam. And I bundled together 3 separate practice exams with 90 questions in each exam, 5 performance-based questions, and 85 multiple-choice-based questions 3 times, so that you can go through those and figure out the details. Here's an example right from the exam book. So this is the PDF practice exam book that I have in front of me. Let's do one. Here's a question, number A9. A student would like to prevent the theft of their laptop while studying at the library. Which of the following security methods would be the best choice to support this laptop? Would it be biometrics, a locking cabinet, a USB token, or a cable lock? Now, if you have a PDF annotation tool or your PDF reader allows you to annotate, you can check or uncheck different options that are in here. Well, now I'm going to words. I don't have to annotate that. But you can click in the PDF if you want to keep track of that, or you can open up just a new window and put your answer in there. Or the way I do it is I go right here to the right side where I can either look at the quick answer or look at the details. If I click that, it takes me to page 45, because right now I'm on page 15. So let's go to page 45. I just click the details. It takes me right to the answer and tells me that the answer is D, cable lock, and it explains to me why that is the best answer in this situation. What I have problems with on practice exams, though, is I never get it right the first time. I always answer something else. But a lot of these exams don't tell you why your answer was wrong. So in my practice exams book, every single question, I tell you why the answer is right, and I tell you why all the wrong answers were wrong. So that if you answered USB token, you'll understand why that particular answer doesn't apply to this scenario. And then on top of that, at the very bottom of the list, I have a QR code that will take you to the video that talks about the topic that I cover in the question. So you have yet another learning opportunity. If none of this makes any sense and you're like, I don't know what biometrics is, I don't know USB token, I don't know these terms you're using, you can click on that and go watch the video. So easy to do. And then I'm in a PDF reader, so I can click my back button or back link and go right back to the next one, and then I can keep going down the list and go to the next question on my list. These are my practice exams. They're available on my website at professormesser.com/core2pe, or just follow the links on my website. I can also bundle them together with my course notes. So if you want to buy the course notes and the practice exams, you get a little bit of a discount. So that may be something you want to consider as well. Like to bundle these and give you a credit for some of that, because helping support the site, I want to encourage that. So I appreciate everyone who is on the site, who has purchased these products. You really keep this whole machine going, and I really do appreciate it. Find that at my website, professormesser.com/core2pe. Those are my Core 2 A+ practice exams. Let's do another QA, shall we? I've got another question available for you. This next multiple choice question asks, which of the following would be the best way to prevent ESD, whatever that is? Would it be to touch the metal case of the device? Would it be to keep the room at a low humidity level? Would it be to wear cotton clothing? Would it be to disconnect the power source? Or would it be to use non-magnetic tools? Which of the following would be the best way to prevent ESD? Would it be to touch the metal case of the device, keep the room at a low humidity level, wear cotton clothing, disconnect the power source, or use non-magnetic tools? If you think you know the answer, let me put that link up, professormesser.com/QA. Lock it in. From the chat room, Goran says, I've convinced him. I'm buying your practice exams. Thank you. I appreciate your support. Thank you so much. Alexander in the chat room says, is practice exam C harder than practice exam B and A? Well, no. They're all the same as far as difficulty level. I tried to make the exams be as close as possible to the experience and difficulty you would have on an actual exam, which is difficult, by the way, to make that happen. It's a challenge to make that happen. So that's one of the things that you're never quite sure if you hit exactly right, but I try to come very close to that. Now, obviously, all of the questions in these are questions that I have written. They are all original questions. I'm the one who wrote them, so I know if they are good or not. I know if they have been designed to work with the exam or not. I don't just send something off to someone else and say, hey, write up a bunch of questions. I'll stick them in a book. The only way to know that you're getting quality, accurate questions and answers is if I write them myself. So everything in there is what I wrote. That's the key. And that way I also know that you're getting a good one from all of this. So let's see how you did with this question. I need to turn on some air. These LED lights that I have are fantastic. And you would think, LED, how hot could they possibly get? And the answer is they get kind of warm. They're not like a big halogen light, but they do make the room a little bit more warm. Let's go through this one. Which of the following would be the best way to prevent ESD? Would it be to touch the metal case of the device, keep the room at a low humidity level, wear cotton clothing, disconnect the power source, or use non-magnetic tools? Let's show the results. And 52% of us say to touch the metal case of the device. We got at least a majority on that one. So we'll come back to that and see if that really makes sense. Disconnect the power source. 23% of you said disconnect the power source would be the best way to prevent ESD. 15% said use non-magnetic tools. 11% said to keep the room at a low humidity level. And no percent, exactly 0%, say wear cotton clothing. Wouldn't that be great if that was the answer? It was wear cotton clothing. ESD is electrostatic discharge. That is a bad thing in the world of electronics because static electricity can easily damage these sensitive components we use. Easily. Now, it doesn't happen a lot. Most of us are very good about static, and most of us are not in an environment where we are worried too much about electrostatic discharge. But you will find certain places around the country, certain times of the year, certain places in the world, and certain components you work with are very, very sensitive to static electricity. So you can absolutely break some components. In fact, if you're ever at the point where you're working with high-end electronics, let's say you're working with firewalls or routers, I've done memory upgrades on these devices where the memory upgrade was tens of thousands of dollars. So they send in the equipment that is tens of thousands of dollars, and they send it with an electrostatic discharge prevention materials. Most of the time, they'll send it with an armband that you can put on that will connect to a piece of metal to ensure that electrostatic discharge would not be an issue. So you should also consider, if you're working on a device, to maybe, we call it self-grounding. You're not really grounding yourself in the traditional electrical sense of the word. You don't have to have a copper rod 6 feet down into the actual earth and somehow touch that particular rod. What you're trying to do is equalize the electrical potential between yourself and the device that you're working on. And the way that you do that is by touching an exposed portion of the metal chassis that you're working on. Before you do that, and in fact, whenever you're working on a device, regardless of what you are doing, unplug the power connection, please. Always disconnect power from anything that you're using. I know it's so what you're doing is so easy. You're going to be in for a second. You're going to just barely change this one thing, which is great until you accidentally use your screwdriver and it accidentally hits that other thing. And then there's a bright flash of light, smoke goes out of the machine, and then you could potentially be injured as well. So never, never, never have power connected to your device. Also, never connect yourself to the ground wire of your electrical system. You will find places on the internet that will plug you into the ground wire of an electrical outlet. I am not kidding. In fact, there are manufacturers who recommend plugging yourself into the ground of an electrical system. What an awful idea. What happens when some other device on this electrical environment happens to send electricity to the ground and you're connected to that same ground? I think we can pretty much figure out that's a bad idea, just waiting to happen. Never, never, never connect yourself to the ground wire of an electrical system. Never, 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 never. So let's talk about what the answer is. Everybody in the chat room is like, have we said the answer yet? No, we have not. So let's see if what the answer happens to be. So touching the metal case of the device we just heard was a great idea. We said right here, touch your exposed part of the metal. That's a great way to be able to minimize or even prevent any type of electrostatic discharge. You should always be doing that. It should be second nature when you're working on a system. You shouldn't even think about it anymore. You should have the power unplugged. You open up the case. The first thing you should do is probably touch the top or the chassis, the metal chassis that's there. Well, that won't work very well, will it? So that's why whenever I go to the point where I'm telling people, just touch the metal chassis, just keep doing it. It's something that now becomes so standard, so automatic. It's just a second nature now whenever I open up a machine to touch that metal chassis. What about these other answers? 22% of you said to disconnect the power source, which you should be doing, but disconnecting the power source doesn't do anything for preventing electrostatic discharge. Has nothing to do with static electricity. Nothing. Doesn't help you at all. The electrical ground of a system, I think, is where people were going with that. But the electrical ground of a system is to prevent power voltages from getting to you, and instead they go into the ground. The electrical ground is not there to prevent static discharge and won't. So don't use it. Don't ever connect yourself to the power source of a system. Disconnecting the power source is something you should do, but it does not prevent ESD. 14% of you say use non-magnetic tools. The magnetic part of it does not have any type of capabilities here. The magnetic function has nothing to do with electrostatic discharge, so using non-magnetic tools is not going to help you. And keeping the room at a low humidity level, 10%, doesn't help. In fact, the lower the humidity, the more potential for electrostatic discharge. The higher the humidity, the less potential for electrostatic discharge. Now, some people in the chat room are saying, but wait, I thought having an electrical ground could maybe take some of that static discharge and send it down the electrical ground. Not in the scope of working with a computer. If you're working on high voltage tens of thousands of volts of systems in a major electrical generator system, it's a different set of physics involved. And there are static electricity concerns that are helped by having an electrical ground. For the purposes of you working on a computer, having electrical ground helps you not at all. You will find it has no impact on preventing electrostatic discharge from yourself when you touch that machine. Because that's what you're trying to prevent, is you touch the machine and there's static discharge. Doesn't matter what the machine's connected to. It has its own electrical potential. So that's why you would never connect to an electrical ground, have an electrical ground involved with this, connect the machine or yourself to that electrical ground. No, never, never, never. I have a lot of examples of ways you can help prevent electrostatic discharge in my video. On the 221,002 section 4.4, the video is managing electrostatic discharge. That is the best way to prevent ESD from the options available. You want to touch the metal case of the device. Touching the case will create an electrical, it'll equalize the electrical potential between you and the device. In fact, you might get a little electric shock, a little static electric discharge when you touch the case, which is great because it's hitting the case, not the internal sensitive electronic components inside the machine. It's okay if the case gets a little bit of a static electric shock. There's nothing wrong with the case. You're not going to hurt the case. So that's why you're doing that. You're initially equalizing that electrical potential. And that way, if you ever touch anything else in the machine from that point forward, you're not going to have any more discharge. So that's the idea. Touch the case, not a component. Light the candle, not the rat. So that's the goal. So that's why I tell people never plug yourself into a power system. It's remarkable. It was, I think it was Apple's materials that actually had a picture and showed the text, here's how you should connect yourself up to prevent electrostatic discharge. It was frightening. And I think I asked that person to go back to the powers that be at Apple and tell them, don't let people connect themselves to the power system. Does that even make sense? It's just a bad idea. Do not do that. Bad. Unplug, disconnect yourself. Never put yourself in a position where there's any type of electrical danger. You should be able to completely remove any type of electricity and make your work environment as safe as possible for yourself and your loved ones, more importantly. So that's my safety talk for today. Hopefully that'll get you somewhere. I know we're at the top of the hour. And by the way, if you are watching this video for continuing education unit credit, you would go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There's a Contact Us link. In that Contact Us link, put your name, your email address. In the subject line, put August 2021 Core 2, A+. Something where I know what that is. So hopefully that will be useful. And in the body of the message on a line by itself, put the super secret code word of the month, ESD. Our super secret code word of the month is ESD. So hopefully that will help you. If you are trying to earn some continuing education unit credits, it is good for 1 hour of a webinar category CEU. And I put that on the email that I will send to you in about a week. I usually go through hopefully faster than a week, but certainly I try to get them out as quickly as possible. Again, go to the top or the bottom of Professor Messer website, click on the Contact Us link, put in your name, your email address, put in the subject line, August 2021 Core 2, and on a line by itself, with nothing else on that line, by itself, in the email message, put the word ESD. And then you can put anything else you want in the rest of the message, by the way. I do read through every single one of them, and I love reading the things you send me. Some are hilarious. Some of you are just telling me about your experiences taking these exams, your successes. I love to read those things. So please, you're more than welcome to put whatever else you would like in there. I know we're at the top of the hour, but let's do one more because that's where we are. Let's do one more question. It's overtime. And the question asks, an administrator would like to individually enable and disable startup applications in Windows 10. Which of the following would provide this functionality? Would it be System Configuration, Task Manager, Windows Defender, Event Viewer, or Performance Monitor? An administrator would like to individually enable and disable startup applications in Windows 10. Which of the following would provide this functionality? Would it be System Configuration, Task Manager, Windows Defender, Event Viewer, or Performance Monitor? Hopefully you're familiar with those. Go to professormesser.com/QA, lock in the answer, figure out what this happens to be. Maybe you happen to know the answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Don't do that. Don't make that happen. In the real world, on the data center floor, I have rarely, if ever, seen a wristband. I agree. I feel the same way. Only in manufacturers' labs have you seen bands used. So that's one of those cases where I mention that working with the materials that are expensive tend to have a little more protection associated with them. And you're right. If you're in an environment where it's cold and it's dry, you're going to get a lot of ESD. In a lot of places, you've got a mat that's on the floor, an ESD mat, or at the worst case, if you don't have a band, you don't have a mat, you don't have a bag, you don't have any of those tools that you would normally have to prevent ESD, open up the machine, touch the metal case, and it's effectively done the same thing. Now, obviously, you're not constantly connected. So there is, if you walk away and come back, you're going to have to touch the metal case again. If you start working for a while and you're moving around, you got some material on that's creating a static discharge, just keep touching that metal case every once in a while and you'll be okay. So, we'll talk in the chat room, some of these questions coming in, some good ones. So if you weren't able to catch that, credit for this, you'll have to rewind once we're done with this. We'll have to figure all those pieces out. Let's see how you did with this question that asked, an administrator would like to individually enable and disable startup applications in Windows 10. Which of the following would provide this functionality? Would it be System Configuration, Task Manager, Windows Defender, Event Viewer, Performance Monitor? Now, if there was a case where you could argue trick question, this sort of would be one of those, wouldn't it? Let's see how you answered this one. 69% said Task Manager. The 29% said System Configuration. Those fell pretty much where I thought they would, because you have 0% that said Windows Defender, 3% that said Event Viewer, and 0% that said Performance Monitor. So almost nobody said Windows Defender, Event Viewer, or Performance Monitor. And you're right, it is not Windows Defender. That looks from antivirus and anti-malware. It is not Event Viewer. That shows you all of those event logs that are in your Windows system. And it would not be Performance Monitor that would be in there either, because Performance Monitor just shows you metrics and statistics. It doesn't allow you to enable or disable applications. Prior to Windows 10, you would go to System Configuration and individually enable and disable startup applications. So if you're in Windows 7 or Windows 8.1, you go to System Configuration. It's right there as a tab in sysconfig. I'll show you what it looks like. There it is. Here's System Configuration. There's a tab in there called the Startup tab, and you can enable or disable things that are starting up on your system just by clicking them. Makes it so easy. But what Microsoft found is we were always using it, and most of the time we were going to System Configuration just for that feature. So they thought, that's a really weird place to put it. Let's move it. Let's move it to in Windows 8, 8.1, and Windows 10. I think I may have misspoke before and said it was in Windows 8.1. But in Windows 8, 8.1, and Windows 10, they moved it so it's in Task Manager. There's now a Startup tab in Task Manager that has this startup information, and then you can choose what gets started up and what does not get started up. So that is where it is now in Windows 10. I think it's a little more convenient now, but it's in a different place. And it's important to know that it is in a different place. And that's why in this particular example, it is not System Configuration. It is Task Manager, answer B, because I said in the question, we would like to enable and disable startup applications in Windows 10. And that's why I specified Windows 10 in this message altogether. So hopefully that's one where you were able to recognize what I was asking you and where that was coming from. It's in a lot of other places in Windows 10 as well. Yes, but I didn't give you any of those places in this question. So that is one of the things that you will find on the exam is pretty important. What you think the answer is might be true and accurate, but it's not available as one of the answers in the question. That happens all the time. But one of the answers in the question will be one that you could use. It's very often the thing that you think automatically should be in there is not in there at all. So that's the key, being able to familiarize yourself with that. Well, all the questions today came directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. Go to professormesser.com/objectives, and you'll be able to download for free the entire list of everything you need to know from the objectives. Very useful. And in fact, it should be the first thing you download. It should be the last thing you reference before walking into the exam, because it gives you a really nice checklist of everything you need to know. So if you're wondering, am I ready to take the exam? Do I really know everything? This will tell you. So make sure you get your hands on that. Absolutely free. There's a link from my website at professormesser.com/objectives, or go to the Google machine, type in CompTIA exam objectives. It'll take you right there. It's a great thing to have. Make sure you have it. We do one of these study groups every month. We have 2 more this month here in August. We've got a Network Plus study group next week, next Wednesday, I believe. And then a Security Plus study group Tuesday after that. So we've got all kinds of things happening this month. We've also got more already scheduled for next month. Our A Plus study groups next month are on the 14th and 16th of September. We took the first week off, by the way, so keep your eye on that. Pushed everything about a week. So Network Plus on the 22nd, Security Plus on the 29th. We still fit it in there. Everything is there, so you can't go wrong. If you've ever looked through all of these videos on my site, there are tons of videos for Core 1 and Core 2. One of the things that might help you, especially I mentioned this when we were talking about my practice exams, is my course notes. I take everything from every video, all the text, all the important graphics, all the tables, and I put them into one document. These are my course notes. There is no more comprehensive set of course notes from my videos than these 2 books, the Core 1 and the Core 2 course notes. You can find them on my website at professormesser.com/1000notes. So if you're one of those people that would just rather have a reference guide where everything is already written for you and you can use that as your reference tool throughout your certification studies, this book is for you. Have a look at that at professormesser.com/1000notes. Well, we've come to the end of the main part of the study group, but there's the after show. We're not done yet. I've been asking you questions this whole time. In the after show, you ask me the questions. So I stop asking questions, at least for a moment. Don't forget about my course notes and practice exams on my website. Another link you can use to get there is professormesser.com/1001success. Don't forget about the discounted vouchers on my website. No discount code required. Don't pay full price for your vouchers. Go to professormesser.com/vouchers and get my free exam hacks ebook. And of course, we do daily pop quiz questions on Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter. The same questions on Instagram if you're an Instagrammer and you prefer a pretty picture with the question. I think they're pretty pictures. I think they're nice pictures on there. They're in a carousel. That's what Instagram calls it. So you get the question, you can swipe to the left, see the answer, swipe to the left again, and see the whole picture. It's kind of a little bonus for going through the Instagram piece. And of course, don't forget about YouTube. There's all kinds of videos coming out before the end of the year. You'll never know unless you subscribe and hit the bell. Go to professormesser.com/YouTube. Well, that covers us for the main part of the study group. We went a little over time, but that's not too bad. Stick around for the after show. We've got more Q&A coming right up, and we'll be back to you in just a moment. Thanks for joining us in this first hour, and we will see you next time on the A Plus Study Group. Well, let me see if I'm clicking buttons back here. You can hear it. Let's see if I can figure this out. No, this thing that's back here, that's a real background. It's not a green screen. In fact, if I get rid of my lights, some folks were asking about this earlier, so let me turn my lights off. So that's really what's behind me. It's my real house. It's not a fake house. I should do a green screen one of these days just so that we can see the difference of those. If you will bear with me in just a moment, I'm going to set up the call-in lines. I'll be taking questions from the chat room. I will also be taking questions from the telephone. We'll be using voice communication to be able to do this. But to make that happen, I have to call into my own show because the voice communication is actually in the cloud. So let me start my Skype. Give me a moment. There we go. Yes, I know it's not pronounced Skype. It's a long story, everyone. Now it's a really long story. Now I think there's only 3 people in the world that really understand what in the world I'm talking about. Let's see if this nice lady is going to answer.
Thank you for calling.
Oh, it's a nice person. Nice gentleman. I have to type in my super secret code word and a £, and then the nice lady says,
enter your 6-digit PIN.
Well, thank you. These pins are going to get me. Let's see if I remember, and if I did that right.
Welcome, Professor Messer.
Thanks, nice lady. Well, that means that you can join us either by asking questions in the chat room. I'm noticing a few come through. Oh, I've got the wrong graphic up. You won't know what phone number to use, and neither will I. We'll make it much harder. You'll have to guess. That's what we'll do. We'll make it a guessing game. You can call in anywhere in the continental U.S. using our toll-free number. It doesn't cost you a dime, 855-785-RJ45. West of the Rockies, +1 855. I guess you can do the 855-785-7545. But there is, if you are calling in on Skype, you would put the +1 at the beginning. It doesn't cost you anything on Skype either. You can call from anywhere in the world for free. I pay for it. Go to professormesser.com/live to get the phone number or the one on the screen. You put a +1 at the beginning, +1 855-785-7545. So that's one of those that will get you there. In the chat room, questions. So one of these would be sort of nuances on the exam. And I think this is a good thing to discuss, which is how do you determine what is best or most or first on these exams? So take, for example, in this particular case, Raymond in chat room says, I would have, for the first question, I would have chosen locked cabinet over the cable with the thought that you wouldn't need to take it. Except, where are you getting a locked cabinet from? Are you dragging that along with you to the library? I don't think so. So it's not a viable option. They don't have locked cabinets just sitting around at the library for you to use, generally speaking. Maybe some libraries do, which would be awesome. But my library does not. I need some coffee. My library does not have a locked cabinet. Only the best option would be the cable, because you can bring that with you. It's very small. You wrap it up. It's very common on the questions on the exam. I think one of the things that makes the exam useful is that you have to be able to identify where those happen to be. So I think that's one of those cases where if you're ever in an environment where they're giving you a scenario, you have to use what is common for that scenario. And so you have to think about what options are available to you. Would you put it into an enormous safe? Well, you could. That would protect it, wouldn't it? But where are you going to get a safe from if you're sitting in a library? That's the concept. That's the thing you should be thinking about, at least from a perspective of understanding what is good and what is bad on these exams. That's the thing that can help you understand what the best answer might be. And to be fair, the best answer should really be obvious in the question. It should really pop right out at you and go, oh, well, clearly it must be the cable, because I'm not going to have a cabinet with me, I guess, over my back. That's the idea of those questions anyway. Another question from the chat room, and I see people calling in. Thank you, callers. I'll be with you in just a moment. How do you find the job market in your area? And I don't think there's much of a difference depending on where you are in the world. You find the job postings that are popular for your particular geography. So here in the United States, you go to LinkedIn Jobs, you go to Monster, you go to Dice, you go to any one of those very popular websites where people will post jobs. And I think that's one of the best ways. In the video I made of how to get a job in IT with no experience, that video is in the exam or in the video link here in the video description. That video gives you some ideas of how to gather this intel, how to create a spreadsheet, what to put in the spreadsheet, how to figure out what jobs are available and what people are looking for. Because some people will come to me and say, what do I do? Do I take the A+? Do I take the Network Plus? Do I take the Security Plus? And my answer is always, I don't know. What do employers want you to have? Because that's really what I think most people are asking. To get a job, what do I need? If you're in the DC area of the United States, probably going to be more Security Plus than anything else. If you're in Chicago, it might be different. And you're in Dallas, it might be different. So you need to look and see what employers are looking for in your area. And those online systems are a great way to do it. I think it's one of the best ways to do it, to be able to figure that out. Let's see. Other questions from the chat really, really quick. Let's see. We could talk a little bit about NTFS and share permissions, but it's a little bit more of an involved process to be able to get to that. We did talk about, I think last month we went through those. That may be something good to look through and to be able to have that. Yes, and cables can be cut through. Cables and really the cable locks are, if you know how to get through those cable locks, you don't even need to cut them. But most of them are relatively thin. And if you have the right tools, you can get through it. But that applies to any security mechanism. There's always a tool that will get you through some type of security mechanism. But that wasn't the question. The question was, in a library, which of these would be best? That was the question. Do I accept payments for vouchers from Europe? If you go to my website, professormesser.com/vouchers, you'll notice that it specifies United States, Canada, and some outlying territories of the U.S. It does not allow you to purchase vouchers that would apply to Europe's a little different. There's a United Kingdom section of Europe for CompTIA. There's a global section, depending on what country you're in. So you have to buy the voucher for the place where you are taking the exam. So if you are in the UK, you can't buy the global voucher. You can't buy the US voucher. You have to buy the UK voucher. If you're in France, I think you buy the global voucher. Sort of off the top of my head. I indexed all of these on the CompTIA site. Currently, I only have US vouchers, but I'm working with CompTIA. We're going back and forth right now on how can I get vouchers for the UK and for Europe if I'm not in the UK and Europe and I don't have an address for the UK and Europe. And they're working through that for me because I want to offer those on my site too. So currently no, but keep track, keep watching. I hope to provide a pull down soon where you can choose where you are and it will take you to the right voucher page. So that might help you as well. Let's go to the phone lines. We will start with New York, New York. The town's so nice, they named it twice. 917 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, hi. My name is Nick. I'm calling from UK.
Oh,
but
there
actually,
it is.
I am Greek-based.
Oh, well, thank you for calling. Thanks, Nick. What can we do for you?
Basically, I'm a huge fan of your show, and really, it has helped me greatly.
Well, thank you.
There is no other source that I could ever suggest to people. Just, go live with Professor Messer, and any questions it will be passed.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
But my problem, Professor, is the thing is you have already answered to my question. The thing is I have been given the CompTIA A+ as a voucher from a friend, like to take the exam. Now my problem is with the second part of the A+ exam.
This is a good friend.
But the thing is, a friend of mine gave it to me as a gift.
Great.
And then I have to possibly, go from the CompTIA website and just purchase the second part of it, because basically I wanted to go to your website and purchase it as a bundle with the notes and everything.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, if you're in the U.S., I got you covered. If you're not in the U.S. currently, I'm working on it though. Hopefully soon.
In UK, but the thing is, I'm so excited to have me online because, as I said, you're the greatest. You're getting people out of, because the thing is, I have dyslexia, so I always need for concepts to be explained a little bit more in depth. And the thing is, when you start explaining something, I have questions. But the thing is, after a few minutes, when you're going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, suddenly I find myself with absolutely no questions.
Fantastic. I'm glad to hear it. I grew up with one of my best friends growing up. The best man at my wedding was dyslexic. I've got family members who are have hearing problems. And whenever I'm creating these courses, it's always in the back of my mind. That's why you'll notice if you go out to my YouTube channel or the videos on my website or the ones you purchase, they all have closed captions that were created by a human. So they're at least the people watching my video are the ones making the captions, because I'm so sensitive to people from English is not their first language. They might have a problem hearing or understanding what I'm saying. And I try to cover as many bases as I can. It's a challenge, but hopefully it hits home for at least a few folks.
The thing is, the only thing they have to do is just pop in for the live the live you have, as well as go to the website. You have all the material there, and of course they can purchase the notes or some extra help from the website, which is basically a very fair price for value.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
I hope there was something specifically with Linux or the Linux environment, but I haven't found nothing on that.
I would love to do a Linux Plus course. I think it would be a lot of fun. I've got extensive Linux background. Of course, if you go to professormesser.com, you're on a Linux machine. I do my own management of that device. So I'm in it up to my elbows constantly.
I was thinking like if someone has with the LPI1 because the thing is, no matter how you're going like the Linux Plus, if you go deeper and deeper and further, the higher you go with Linux, the less help there is. There is like no much and no many people doing Linux.
Yep.
CompTIA, plenty of help from everywhere.
So true, and I think that's. I've looked around at those because I've looked at Linux Plus. I've looked at the Red Hat certifications. I've looked at the Google certifications. Yeah. There's so many different options, but I think it's really from my perspective, it's more about a physics problem. Do I have enough time to create another course on that particular topic and have enough people watch it to really make it worth its while? It's a constant battle to try to figure that out, but I appreciate that feedback. It's always important for me to hear what people are thinking about, because that helps me decide where I prioritize these things in my list.
The thing is, there are people teaching that. Okay, I have found plenty of courses, but the thing is, nobody just sits down with people and just rationalize it, just going through the material again and again and again and again.
We've got to.
If you don't rush, then how are you going to memorize that?
So true. You're absolutely spot on. I think the only way we resolve that is by putting out better, more detailed, more training materials that bring people along with the expectation that they're learning this technology, rather than talking down to people that somehow don't know it, which for some reason in our industry, and maybe this is just sort of human nature, that I see all too often on the Linux side compared to some of the other technologies. We need to get through that problem.
Especially with Arch Linux, that's the thing. Either Arch Linux, like how to install your, either you don't.
So true.
I go like, no, it doesn't work like this. No.
Got its own flavor.
Yeah. And the thing is, it says to many Discord channels or websites, either if you work Ubuntu or, for example, Debian, well, you're not welcome here. It's only for people who know what they're doing.
Right. It's so frustrating when you run into those situations. So we can make it a little less snobby. We can make it a little less elitist and bring Linux to the masses. I think that'd be an awesome idea. I think it'd be worth doing.
Yeah, the thing is, the courses that the thing is, because I was so frustrated, I couldn't find something. I said, I'll do it myself. That that that's it. There is no other way to do it. So I was thinking like going to the LPI one, no, the essentials, but then LPI 1, 2, 3, 4, and
Yep.
just start building from bottoms up.
I think that's going to be the only way to do it. From my perspective, and I've mentioned this in other study groups, it's really about time. Currently we're updating new Network Plus that will be out shortly. After that, there's an A+ course. Both of those have to be updated next year. So I'm already looking into the end of 2022 to first be available to do more courses. So it's one of those where anything I decide on is just going to be out there.
So what will happen with a network class? Like, it's going to be replaced with another network? You're going to have something else?
Yeah, for those of you not following on the Network Plus side, CompTIA has announced that a new version of the Network Plus exam, the N10008, will be out in September. So it'll be out next month sometime. The current version of Network Plus is due to retire in the summer of 2022. They don't have a specific date published yet. So there's plenty of time for those of you watching that are working on Network Plus. Keep working on it. Get your Network Plus certification. Whether you earn it now or earn it in the future, it's the same cert. So it doesn't make sense to wait.
I just keep watching, even if you do security, Network Plus, even if I qualify, to be honest with you, I will keep watching your material because it's educational. You're always keeping up to scratch. So it's really interesting for me.
I appreciate that. It's one of those situations where I think it's going to be just sort of a constant motion until the middle of next year, and then we'll see where it goes. Maybe I'll be able to do another course after that. We just don't know until then, and I keep changing my plans every day anyway. I'm a little flighty that way. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, thank you very much, Mr. Professor. Seriously, thank you so much for all this help with this.
I appreciate the call, Nick. Best of luck, and keep us in track of what's going on.
Oh yeah, I will. I will speak with you through Discord again. Nick the Greek is my name.
Oh, perfect. I will keep an eye out for you. Thanks, Nick.
Take care.
And Nick brings up a good point. I don't think I've even mentioned it today so far. Is we have a Discord that is constant and busy. We used to have a chat on our website. We moved it a couple months ago. Go to professormesser.com/Discord or go to the Professor Messer website. I guess I could bring it up and actually show it to you. On the Professor Messer website, there's a bunch of little icons at the upper right. You can click the one right there that is the Discord icon and join us. We got all kinds of people on Discord that are chatting away every day all the time, and I'm in there too. So if you want to hit me real quick, if I happen to be online, which I am mostly these days, absolutely, you can send me a DM from there as well. And I try to reply wherever it happens to be. If you're on Twitter, I'm on Twitter. If you're on Facebook, I'm sort of on Facebook. You can find me there. I do have the professormesser.com/Facebook page. And I will answer questions from there as well. Discord's such an easy way to do it, though, because it's so immediately available. I think that's one of the best ways to find me in those scenarios. Other questions from the chat room. Yeah, I was happy with the Discord. The people in the chat room saying, yeah, Discord's pretty good. The Discords are extremely useful to be able to have that. I think because everybody tends to be there these days. That's where we've all decided we would be. And I've got a lot of other Discord servers that I am in. I can't say, I was going to say I participate in, but a lot of the other Discords, I'm just there to watch what's going on. I just don't have time to go through and do everything I want to do with all those. But I do have quite a few that I have kind of gathered there to have those pieces. Along the lines of what Nick was saying, I'm always trying to figure out what the next course will be. And so it's one of those where it's all about physics, really. If you're working on Network Plus, there will be a new Network Plus course that'll be rolling out this year. You'll see plenty of Network Plus videos very soon. I've already recorded many Network Plus videos. I've already edited a number of them. So next month sometime, you'll start to see those roll out on YouTube. Plenty to go through there. A new Network Plus course notes. Maybe finally there will be Network Plus practice exams. That's the idea. But again, it's about physics. Earlier on in the year, in 2022, you will see A+, you'll start to hear things about A+. And later on in 2022, I think you will hear about a new version releasing. But then they're going to give you 6 to 9 months before that one goes away. You could potentially still see this version of A+ available until the end of 2022. So if you're working on A+ right now, you got plenty of time as we sit here in August of 2021. It's probably going to be here at least another year, if not more. So that's the key. Do I have a video focused on subnetting? I don't. I have many videos focused on subnetting. Subnetting is not a single thing. It is a series of things you need to know. It's a series of tasks that you need to be familiar with. So you have to start with, how do you do binary to decimal conversion? Then you get that down. All right, how do you subnet if it's subnetting class-based subnetting, where you're subnetting class A, class B, class C. So you can kind of understand where the subnets are coming from. Then from there, classless subnetting with binary conversions, which obviously nobody does in real time because it just takes too long. But it's important knowing what you are doing when you do a shortcut. And traditionally, I've shown people my shortcut, which is the 7-second subnetting shortcut. And some people have mentioned to me, and they're absolutely right, this is really the magic number subnetting shortcut with more charts. So with less math. It's really what it is. I built a subnetting method that would not require me to do any math because I'm good at math. I think I'm pretty good at math. I'm a good math person. I'm not one of those people that says I'm bad at math. I'm pretty good at math unless I'm in the middle of an exam. And then I'm awful at math. I'm horrible. I can barely read English when I sit down for these exams. There's so much anxiety. You're reading the paragraphs. You're not interpreting anything. It's going, yeah, I don't know what's happening. That's why I made this format. I really designed it for me taking Cisco exams. Because if you've ever taken a Cisco exam, it's all subnetting, it feels like. It feels like every question is a subnetting question. And it's almost true. Maybe half of them are subnetting questions or have some element of subnetting in them. And so I made this format and structure so I could sit down in a Cisco exam and go boom, boom, boom. There's your subnet. There's another one. There's another one. There's just a chart. It's automatic. I get it down to like 2-second subnetting. I think the 7-second sounds better. But I did that because I would always count wrong. I do my math wrong during the exam. That's a format where you can't go wrong because there's no math. But other people rightfully have told me, we're not like that. That's you. We're pretty good with math during the exam. We should have a shortcut for us. And so in the new Network Plus video series, I've already shot it. There's a magic number method. So I can show you how to do it with the magic number method, which is a great method. It's really what I built the 7-second subnetting on. They're all pretty much the same because subnetting, there's not much difference between all of these shortcut methods. So I have a magic number method that's coming out. I really need to edit that video and just put it out right now because I think it applies to Network Plus regardless of what version you're taking. The magic number method is the one that you commonly see written up in a lot of Cisco books. Cisco likes that format, or at least that's the one they tend to promote the most. And it's a very good shortcut, especially if you can do powers of 2 in your head. You can calculate out where the endpoints are on a subnet of 16 or 8 or 4 different hosts per subnet. You can do all that in your head. Magic number is perfect for you. So I will be putting out a magic number method so that you can see what process to go through with magic number. But I'm also updating the 7-second subnetting video as well so that you can have a choice between those, because I'm going to keep doing 7-second subnetting. You can do whatever you'd like, or you may find your shortcut method's kind of a mixture between. Maybe you don't need a chart for the powers of 2, which is really a magic number, but you do need a chart for the endpoints of the subnet delineations of 16, 8, 4 hosts per subnet, because that's just difficult to count when it gets up into the hundreds. Those are very useful tools to use for subnetting. I would recommend, however, and I've said this before, and I don't think it's controversial, but if you are just struggling with subnetting for your Network Plus, you're studying for Network Plus and subnetting just isn't working for you, and you have spent days on this, my professional recommendation is to completely ignore it. Not the exam, the subnetting part. Just don't worry about subnetting, because the time that you could spend really trying to figure this out, you could be spending that time learning 10 other things on the exam. So the potential for points is different. You might get a subnetting question on your Network Plus exam. You might not get any questions about subnetting on your Network Plus, or you might get 5 or 6. So you never know just how many you'll get. But you're the one that has to decide, do I spend a lot of time on subnetting or not? You have to make these decisions about where you focus your efforts on this subnetting part. And I think that's one that only you can make that decision and answer those questions. From the chat room, another question: which do I think is harder, Security Plus or Network Plus? Oh, that's a good question. They both have their challenges. I will tell you from sort of a raw complexity perspective, Security Plus is more difficult because there's so many more topics you have to memorize, and it's much more varied in its series of topics. It is really varied in its series of topics. So I always tell people, what you need to do is look at just how much you're going to need to learn on this exam. And for the purposes of Security Plus and Network Plus, let's figure out the numbers. Since you asked, and I'm sitting right here with my spreadsheets where I have already calculated the number of objectives on these certification exams. Let's start with Security Plus. The 601 version of Security Plus has a total of how many objectives? Scroll. It's a big exam. It's an enormous exam, by the way. 1,038 objectives on the Security Plus exam. That's quite a few, by the way. That took me forever to get those videos done. It is enormous in size. It's one of the biggest certification exams I think CompTIA has. It's just big. Let's look at Network Plus. Now, I'm going to look at the N10008. Actually, I think I have both the objectives for 7 and 8 we can compare. So for the 007, number of objectives in 007. So in Security Plus, the number of objectives was 1,038. Let's just say 1,000. Security Plus has 1,000. Network Plus, the N10007, 499, 500 objectives. Half the number of things you would need to learn. You effectively, it's 2 Network Plus exams to be able to learn everything you need for Security Plus. That's a huge difference, by the way. I've done the math, roughly double. There in the newer version of the Network Plus exam, the N10008, slightly increased. There are about 588 objectives in the new N10008. So really about 89 new objectives, almost 100 new objectives, not a lot of new objectives. So some objectives were thrown out, others were brought in. So in reality on the N10008, there's really about 40% of the exam is new. But the number of things you have to learn is only about 600 versus 1,000. So that's the key. The N10007 is going to be around until the summer of 2022. So if you're studying for that version of the exam, you got plenty of time. Do not worry. Plenty of time to work through those pieces. The N10008 will be released next month. Is there a Security Plus 601 practice exam? There is a Professor Messer SY0601 practice exam on my site. Absolutely. Yeah. Especially. That was a really important book to have because Security Plus is just so big. And the format changed a little bit with Security Plus. For those of you that have been watching this through the years, the structure of the exam changed a bit. It got broader in scope, obviously, with 1,000 objectives. It got really broad. But the questions they made a little bit easier on the exam. For those of you that took the 501 exam, it was almost a reading comprehension, like paragraphs of information you have to read through to answer one question. Fortunately, they saw that that was a little bit cumbersome, and the questions on the new Security Plus exam I found to be much more streamlined. 2 or 3 sentences, get the answer. 2 or 3 sentences, get the answer. So it's no longer this 5 and 6 sentence story that you have to step through to figure the answers. So that's one of those challenges. On the exam, some folks in the chat room have been talking about time management on these exams. What a great topic. Time management, because you have an exam that can give you a maximum of 90 questions, some of which are performance-based questions and ostensibly will take you a bit longer to complete. And of those 90 questions, you have 90 minutes. That's it. So you really have to be watching the clock, which is on your screen the whole time, and watch and make sure that you're going as fast as you can through these. And one of the tips people say in the chat room, and it's a pretty good tip, is to maybe read through the performance-based questions at the beginning of the exam, but don't worry about answering them. Just keep moving. Skip over the performance-based questions effectively. On the CompTIA exams, you can move to any question on the exam at any time. You can go all the way to the end. You can jump to the middle. You can go somewhere else. You can jump anywhere you want. That's not the same way on everybody's certification exam. If you take a Cisco certification exam, you have to answer question 1 first. And when you submit question 1, that's it. You can't go back. You go to question 2. When you submit question 2, that's it. You can't go back. You go to question 3. So in CompTIA, you can jump around however you want, whenever you want. So a good strategy for many people is to skip performance-based, go through all the multiple choice, use the multiple choice as an information gathering tool to help you remember topics in your brain, to help you remember things. And then when you're done with those, jump all the way back to the beginning and go through those performance-based questions. And you may find that the multiple choice-based questions helps you answer some of the performance-based questions. So use the exam to answer itself. Get some free points by simply using the exam. The performance-based questions are not multiple choice. They are by definition anything but multiple choice. So they could be matching, drag and drop, pull down menu, putting things in a particular order, putting things by different speeds. They could be many different things. So you don't know what you're going to get. We did one today. We did a matching question. So that was a good example of a matching question. In previous exams, they even did fill in the blank. Some of the earlier Linux Plus, they no longer do fill in the blank, thankfully. That's just painful, fill in the blank. And difficult to measure. I think difficult to grade, fill in the blank on an exam like this. So it's one of those. How can I improve the 221,001 cloud and virtualization area? Well, fortunately, it's not very big. It's just a couple of videos, really, for the cloud pieces. And but it is a pretty big percentage on the exam if you were to look at it. Only thing I could really recommend is just go to different resources and gather what you need. The topic of cloud and virtualization is obviously enormous. We could spend weeks going through those topics. But the exam is very focused. It has a very specific, narrow laser focus on cloud and virtualization. So that's one where it would be useful to know at least the topics and the definitions that are provided in those areas. And I think you do fine. It's not as bad as you think it is. I don't think. That's my opinion of it anyway. And that's something you might find too on yours. It's not quite as bad as you thought the cloud would be. But I find even though it's just 2 or 3 videos, there's a lot of questions that'll show up on the exam from there. And if you look at my practice exams book, I took the percentages from the objectives and applied those percentages to the actual practice exam. So the distribution of questions you get on a single practice exam are identical to the disposition of percentages that you find in the exam objectives. So they're identical for those pieces, for that reason, so that you can see, wow, I'm getting a lot of cloud questions. Well, that's how many you would get in the actual exam, or at least ideally, that's what they would give you on the actual exam. Can we call you for questions? Well, I'm not going to give you my number, so no, you can't. But you could go to Discord and put a question out into one of the A+ Network Plus or Security Plus Discord channels. Other people can answer, and if I'm around, I'll answer too. We have some nice conversations there. People throw out an idea or throw out a question or throw out something they're trying to figure out, and everybody gets to add a little bit of input there. It's a really good resource, and there's people that tend to be in there all the time. So I think that's a good one. You go to professormesser.com/Discord to join the Discord. What's the studio line? The studio line, that's the one right here, or right there, right here, right there. Studio line, 855-785-7545. That's the one that gets you to the phone calls. And there are lines open if you wanted to call. We'll go through those, but I also take questions from the chat room if anybody would like to put anything in there. Here's a controversial question. Do I recommend doing the test at home or in a testing center? I recommend testing center, period. End of story, done. That's it. Testing center is easy because you don't have to set up anything. I've never heard of, I would say never. I have rarely hear of someone having their testing process halted in a testing center because somebody had their hand on their chin, or they're just sitting there sort of looking and thinking about a problem and having the test won't be taken away from you in a testing center. For some reason at home, well, I know the reasons. At home, they are very strict with how you act and what you do. And they're strict because they're very concerned about the questions getting out. They want to preserve the privacy, the sanctity of the exam, if you will. They want to be sure that the exam questions remain private. Otherwise, what good is the exam? So at home, there's somebody watching you over a webcam. And if you do this, they will put a message on the screen that says, you have to remove your hand from in front of your face. Oh, sorry. Okay. Or if you're on the exam and you're here taking the exam at home and you do this, I'm going to bring up the presentation. You're at home and a person in a library needs to lock their laptop. And they'll put a message on the screen, stop saying the question out loud. And in some cases, if somebody happens to walk into the room accidentally and they go, oh, you're in exam, sorry, and they walk out, fail you. You're failed. If they wanted to halt it with you talking, they will fail you. And they don't reschedule it. You failed the exam. You would have to buy another voucher to take the exam again just because somebody accidentally walked in the room for 2 seconds and walked right back out again. But they were in the camera shot, and they are so strict with the at-home. Not to mention, there have been numerous technical problems with the home software. There have been numerous issues with some proctors are very strict, some proctors are not. These are not insurmountable problems, but there's enough of them that would make me personally go to a testing center. Now, I realize that there are challenges with testing centers in their locations. In some parts of the country, testing centers aren't open. And some people live far away from a testing center, so going to a testing center is not a choice. But that's okay. The online works, but there are some significant caveats and things you have to be concerned about when you are testing at home. It has to be the perfect environment. You have to be sure that you're on your best behavior at home, but it is a little bit of a challenge. It's a little bit of a pain, as we say here in the chat room. Thank you for the expletives. But it's a little bit of of a difficulty. And that's why I say, just take it to a testing center. You don't have to worry about it. Nobody's going to be on you for sitting here and thinking about a problem and looking at the ceiling. You think about this instead of stop looking at the ceiling. Okay. I'll stop looking at the ceiling. That's the challenge. But if there's no other choice, well, testing at home, it is a viable option. You just have to be prepared and be sure that it is very, very secure and set up in a way that will not set you up for failure. And I think if you're testing for a certification, you already have enough concerns. Just don't worry about it. But as people are saying in the chat room, here in the Philippines, testing centers aren't open. You don't have a choice, but you do online. And one of the benefits is you take the test online. You can take it whenever you want, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you work at nights or you work during the day, you work weird hours, and you just want to come home, sit down, take the exam, you can do that, no matter what time of the day it happens to be. So some great benefits there. And yeah, you make sure you read through the exam rules for taking your exam at home. There are specific and very precise things you have to either do or not do. As people in chat room are mentioning, can't have a headset. You can't use headphones at all. No headphones, no headsets. You have to have an external microphone or one that can be used to hear you. You have to have a webcam so they can watch you. Everything is recorded. They record the entire thing. They're watching you. But they're watching you in a testing center as well. By the way, I don't know if you've noticed, there is a camera up there, and they are watching you in a testing center. So that's another one to consider. But there's also, you can't have multiple screens. So this would not work. I could not take my test here. They would not like this room for me taking my test. All of these monitors would have to be unplugged. We would have to disconnect them all and take pictures and show them that they are disconnected. I wouldn't take it in here, though, because of that. They want one screen, one computer, one keyboard, one mouse. That's it. Nothing else. Nothing to write with. All of the whiteboard is online and digital. Nothing else on the table. No materials, no written materials. There's the whole big thing. You have to take pictures of everything. So it's a little bit more of a pain. But if that's your option, that's a pretty good option. I mean, that we were all very happy when the option was given to us, obviously. You just have to be prepared for it. And as long as you do that, you're fine. I just have a feeling I would mess up and they would fail me, and then I'm out the money. I don't like that. Make sure you're ready for that. There's a lot of people who take their test online every day and have no problems with it whatsoever. So that's what I would recommend for you as well, for taking those. Go to the testing center if you can. If you can't, make sure you spend an extra amount of time making your testing environment at home as secure as possible. And I think you'll be fine. At worst case, if they run into a problem, what people have done is they have opened up a ticket with the support line at Pearson VUE. They have reviewed the video, and then they've either decided, okay, here's your retake voucher, and they'll let you retake it. As long as it's legitimate, they will allow that. And if not, you just keep going up the ladder. Just keep going up the chain until somebody fixes the problem. So I think they're working on that, though. There's things they're doing to make this process a little bit more seamless. It's a challenge, though. Imagine testing people at home has all kinds of challenges associated with it. So they're trying to balance it out. Find the best way to test at home, but also keep the exam secure. And it is a delicate balancing act. They're figuring it out. What if you have an accommodation to use noise canceling? This is all of the accommodations. There is a set of policies and procedures for accommodations on the Pearson VUE website. Most of these require some type of medical documentation, and I have no idea how long it takes to submit that and have somebody apply it. But that is one where you should be familiar with some of the processes and procedures. It's all on the Pearson VUE website. If you look for CompTIA exam accommodations, it will take you right to the page and take you right to the form you have to fill out to be able to gain access to all of those. That would be the way to do it. As somebody in the chat room was mentioning, you were given a dry erase board to make notes during the exam. You absolutely are. You obviously can't take those dry erase boards with you when you're done. That is if you are at a testing center, you would do that. If you are not at a testing center, then your whiteboard is all online. It is a digital whiteboard. There is a page on Pearson VUE that talks about the digital whiteboard. This is it. And they explain here's where the whiteboard is. There's a little button for it on the screen, whiteboard. And you click that. And on this page, this is at home.pearsonvue.com/onview/whiteboard. That's the URL. But if you scroll down this page, they actually give you a test for the whiteboard. So you can click on things, you can type things out. Let me put my powers of 2 on the screen so I can have that there. This is what you can do with it. Some people try to write with it, which it's not a good way to use your mouse and do things. That's just not usable. I think typing is a much better way to go about doing this. So typing on the screen is a little bit easier, but you can get familiar with this so that if you're planning to write things down, practice before the exam. Practice doing all of this before your exam so that you can get familiar with the whiteboard. Again, if you want to do that, it's at home.pearsonvue.com/onview/whiteboard. Lori is watching the replay. Hi, Lori. Would you mind putting that link in the video description? That would be super awesome. Thank you. She's the best. This is that will take you to the OnView whiteboard. If you're planning to do it online, I highly recommend you get familiar with that. That whiteboard is there the whole time. It maintains the values of the whiteboard from one question to the other. So you've got at least options to work with. Maybe that'll help you too. I think from a testing perspective, being familiar with the things you need to be familiar with, that's a good one. And hoping that will help you with some of the things you're working through. Can you have copy ready and paste it before the test on the whiteboard? No, you cannot. No, you cannot. By design. In fact, when you start the exam, it kind of locks down your operating system. So you can't get back to anything, and it won't allow you to use your clipboard. You have to write everything out from your brain. So the pasting you'll do will be pasting from here, from inside of your noggin and putting it onto the digital whiteboard. That's the best way to do it. I think that's the only way to do it, actually. By design, it's as if you went to an actual testing center where they give you a blank piece of paper and a squished up whiteboard marker, which is why I always tell people, bring your own whiteboard marker if you go to a testing center with a fine tip, and make sure you hand it to the folks at the front desk and say, can I use my own whiteboard marker? And they've always told me, oh yeah, sure. Let me look at it. Yep. Nothing weird about it. There's nothing hidden. Okay, here you go. You can use that. That's what I do, because I like to write out my charts. And if you've ever seen the whiteboard markers, they think you're creating a poster for a football game. I don't know what they're thinking, but you try to write on the whiteboard and it's just a mess. Why do they do that? But there it is. So another question in the chat room, when you pass your 1002, I guess we're assuming that you've already passed the 1001. What is the procedure to get your certification? That's it. You're done. You passed your 1002 and 1001. That's the procedure. You don't have to do anything else. You are, by default, A+ certified at that point. Now, technically speaking, it's not official until 24 to 48 hours afterwards, because CompTIA does evaluate your results. They have some super secret method to determine if the results you got were legitimate or not. I don't know what they do, but they do. And then once they do that, if you look online on the Pearson VUE site, the status of your certification goes from pending to certified. And that's when it's official. But if you're straight up, you don't have any worries about them thinking you did something untoward during your exam, then you're fine. As soon as you pass that exam, I tell the world, hey, I'm A+ certified. Just finished the exam 2 minutes ago. I'm totally certified. I would shout it from the rooftops. So as far as I'm concerned, you're certified the moment you pass that second exam. You can take them in any order as well. So if you could take the 1002 first and then take the 1001 if you wanted to. There is a physical certificate you can get. You get an email from CompTIA that says, go to this website, confirm your address. Once you confirm that information, they send you out some actual pieces of paper that you could do. Don't they still give you a digital version? I think they do. So you could even get the digital version printed out if you wanted to. There's just something nice about that physical certificate in the mail thing. It smells good. It's on nice paper, ready to be mounted. It's in an envelope that says do not bend. So the first thing you have to do is unbend the envelope because putting on an envelope do not bend automatically means it's going to get bent. So you have to unbend it first. Then you can put it in something nice. I don't know why that is, but that's how it works. There's nothing that they can do. You'd have to kind of put a piece of metal in there that would prevent it from I don't know. Depending on the how bad the metal is, don't you think the Postal Service would still bend it? They would still find a way to bend it and put it into your mailbox, even if it's a piece of sheet metal. They'd still find a way to make that happen. I feel comfortable knowing that my Postal Service would find a way around that. They're a crafty bunch. They know what they're doing. And they would find a way to squeeze it into my mailbox regardless. My A+ certification is about to expire, but I am Network Plus certified. What are the steps to renew your A+ certification? Well, I guess the question is, if you are Network Plus certified, in which order did you take these certifications? Did you take the Network Plus first and then the A+, or did you take them in a different order? And here's why I ask. I'll bring this up. Certification, recertify. Let me bring up the website on how to renew your certification. It's CompTIA website, aptly named How to Renew Your CompTIA Certification. And there's so many different ways to renew your cert. It is almost crazy. You really have to spend some time reading through this. But even CompTIA realizes if you made it to this point, they even have a button now that says, oh, do you need to renew quickly? We have a way you can do that with CertMaster CE. Find out how, which is how I usually tell people anyway to renew their cert. Because if you qualify, let's say in your A+, you have an active A+ certification and you passed exams that were from the 900 series or earlier, then you can take CertMaster CE. It takes 8 to 10 hours to complete, and then you're recertified for 3 years. Done. But you have both A+ and Network Plus, and in that scenario, you don't renew your A+. You renew your Network Plus. Let me explain how this works. There's a little chart that says if you have a Network Plus, it will fully renew the A+. If you have Security Plus, if you take that and pass it, it fully renews your Network Plus and A+. And CompTIA only wants you to renew your highest level cert, and then everything underneath it is automatically renewed. So if you have an A+ and a Network Plus, when you renew your Network Plus, it's going to renew your A+ automatically. So you only have to renew one thing, and it renews everything else underneath it. You don't have to go to each individual exam, each individual cert, and try to renew individual cert. That's a mess. We'd never figure it out. We'd have it wrong all the time. So I would recommend finding whatever the highest one you have. In that particular case, sounds like Network Plus. You would renew Network Plus, and then the Network Plus would renew your A+. So you could take the Network Plus CertMaster CE, and it would renew Network Plus and A+, and you're done in 8 to 10 hours. I think probably less for most people. The Network Plus CertMaster CE, they say there is a new version launching September 14th. They haven't given a specific date on when the new Network Plus is out, but somehow I've written that on the screen. I think that's a clue. If you have passed your N10006 or earlier, you can use this to renew. And they're saying if you pass the N10007, you can take the new version of the CertMaster CE on September the 14th. So in about a month. So anyway, that's what I would recommend too, is going that direction for renewals. It's a really easy way. You could also collect CEUs. You could take third-party certifications. You could take higher-level CompTIA certifications. There's a lot of different things you can do to renew your cert. CertMaster CE just happens to be one of the easier ways to do it. So I think that's where I would recommend if you were trying to do that. Is there a resource that has practice exams for the 1002 with questions organized by objective? Not really. Almost everything has, and most people ask for a sample practice exam. So a lot of the effort we put into creating practice questions are in the scope of taking a practice exam. Where you would find a lot of practice questions that are specific to objective would be in books. So find a good A+ book, and you will find the chapters on those topics tend to end with a series of questions. That's what I would recommend. Those would be really good. It takes a long time to write good practice questions. And so that's why you don't see, I think that's why you don't see a lot of them. My practice exam books, I don't know, it took me months to write a single book. I have A+, Core 1, Core 2, Security plus practice exams, working on Network plus practice exams, but it takes months, or literally me sitting in here all day, every day for months to be able to finish those books, just to give you an idea of how long it takes to create this content. So that's why you don't see this amazing amount of practice questions out there, because they just take so long to write. It's really a challenge. So that's why I always tell people, don't worry so much about the topic of the questions. Find the highest quality you can and use those, because it's just hard enough to get questions in general. Let's go back to the phones. The 734 area code. Hey, caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Professor Messer. My name is Fred, and I'm calling from the Detroit, Michigan area.
Detroit,
and,
hey, Fred.
Hey, thank you so much for everything you do. I just want to say that off the bat, I've been watching your videos, and you've been a huge help.
Thanks.
I got your Success Bundle as well, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the support.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been studying for A+ for a little while now, and I feel like I'm confident enough to where I could probably pass the 1001. But what's really great is that I've had some experience in my current job. I've been able to, so I work in media mostly, but I've been able to talk to the IT guys. I'm friends with all of them, and I'm able to tag along with them whenever they tear down computer labs.
Excellent.
Or if they install computer labs.
Nice.
They install these like Dell all-in-ones we've been doing lately. And I've even repaired a few Chromebooks and got a little bit of hands-on experience with Azure.
That's great.
So I don't have, yeah, thank you. And I'm really excited, when you recommended getting hands-on experience, that was something that really, I started to seek that out within my own workplace. But what my question is should I try and apply for like a level 1 position right now, or should I try and do like a level 2 position once I get my A+, since I already have some hands-on experience? I was just curious what your thoughts were on that.
Well, it's going to depend on what the hiring manager thinks is the best fit for your particular knowledge. And if you've already been working with the folks in your organization, whether it's officially or not officially, you're hanging out with them, you're sort of learning what they know, they're getting a better feel for your knowledge. If you were to work with their group within the same company, they could possibly be more inclined to bring you up to more than an entry-level position because they personally know your skill set. That's not necessarily the case if you go to a third-party company where you're showing up and they're going to look at your resume and say, you've not done this before. You've never worked on a help desk officially. You've never really had a job with a title that shows that you were indeed this type of technical person. So you may have a little more proving to do to be able to make it to a second tier for that particular job. It may require you go to tier 1, stay there for maybe a smaller amount of time than most because you already have some of this practical knowledge under your belt, and then they can move you up. Or maybe that's the deal you make with the third party is you say, I've already got some of this knowledge. They go, I don't know. We don't know you. It's not on your resume. But you could say, tell you what, get me on the help desk. After 3 months, let's reevaluate. And after 3 months, you say, we need you to be on the help desk longer. I'll be on the help desk longer. But after 3 months, they say, you think I'm ready to go to the next level. Let's move me up. So you may be able to make some deals with someone who's interested in you if you get to that point in the conversations with that particular employer. I found it, one of my first jobs, first or second or third jobs in the industry was working at an insurance company where I was on the corporate help desk. In that insurance company, I moved from the corporate help desk to a internal server support. I moved from the server support to more of a generic server/network support. And then from there moved out of the company and started doing other things. Really, I moved from help desk to workstation to server to network and then left. So within the same company, I had like 4 jobs. I never left that company. I stayed there 5 years, and I was able to kind of move up in the ranks in the same company because the people there knew me, they understood my skill set, and they felt that it was appropriate to move me into those areas quickly because I spent so much time trying to learn the content. When you move outside the company, you don't necessarily have that advantage. So maybe if you've got the ability to do it now within the same company, there's some pretty good advantages to staying where you are and simply move up as you go. And then eventually you're going to hit a ceiling and really decide, all right, if I want to move up in this industry further, I'm going to need to leave this company and go to a different organization to move into a position that fits me better. The advantages for staying where you are many and varied, and you should be able to take advantage of those if you can.
Okay. Thank you really much. I appreciate all that insight. I had another question, too, if you don't mind me asking.
Yeah.
If I have time here. So I was looking also at AWS Solutions Architect position or certification, and then I also started reading about like what they do day to day. Just because you look at the average salary that those people make, and it's like, wow, that's really interesting. I want to know more about this. So I started watching videos and like day to day what those people do and what are valuable skill sets that are needed. And I noticed that a lot of the times, because part of me was thinking like, oh, perhaps I should just focus on that and like not get my A+ after all and just like really try and do that. But then as I was watching like those videos, those people have a lot of experience in a lot of different areas. It seems like they're knowledgeable on a lot of different technologies. And then they get that certification for AWS Solutions Architect. And then they start off like as, I guess, an assistant or associate position, and then they become the lead. But I just was curious what your thoughts were on being a solutions architect. And is it true that it's like you have to have like good personable social skills, but you also have to have knowledge of everything else? So it's like a blend of both like technology and communication.
Boy, that's a lot there. Let me see if I can unwrap and we can kind of attack these. No, that's really good. These are all good. And let's see if we can unwrap a piece of this. One of the things that bothers me a lot as someone who creates content for people to become certified, the goal of what we do here is for people to get a job or get a better job. Everything I do has that in mind. That is my mission statement, if you could call it that. That's what I want people to be able to do after watching these videos. And one of the things that is a little bit unnerving sometimes is that people will say, why are you wasting your time with the A+? You really should get fill in the blank certification. You really should get your CCNA. You really should get your AWS. You really should get your Red Hat. You really should get your Microsoft Azure, whatever it is. They always try to fit something else in there because you can make a lot more money with that cert. You could get a lot higher position with that. Well, you probably could eventually get a higher position with more money in that. But nobody's going to hire you to manage their router and switch infrastructure if you don't have any fundamentals in routing and switching. That simply does not happen. And if it does happen, it's unusual, rare, and ill-advised, probably by the employer. Most of the time, I answer those people saying that with, well, why are you getting the CCNA? Why are you getting the Azure? Why don't you go be a CCIE? Why don't you study for that? No, wait. Why don't you go to Harvard and get a business degree and be the CEO of the company? There you go. Problem solved. You're making millions a year and you don't have to do anything else. Because there's a path. You have to learn the fundamentals first. You have to start in the mailroom, quote unquote. You have to start at the bottom and start learning the fundamentals of the technology, because it's many things you have to know to be able to manage a switched and routed network, to be able to do things in security. You'd have to know routing, switching, Linux, Windows, cloud, some orchestration and scripting. I mean, there's so many things just for security. And yet I think a lot of people want to go get a security degree and a security certification, and they want to start in security. Except there's not a lot of jobs that start you in security that way. They start you at the help desk where you learn the basics, then you learn operating systems, then you learn networks, then finally you're learning the security piece of it. So it is a path. It's like anything else. I'd love for us all to start on the security side. That would be great. But it is a series of levels that we have to level up. And you don't start the game at level 100. You start the game at level 1, then you level up to level 2, then level 3, and eventually you make yourself up to level 100. And you look back, I think it's the people at level 100 that are looking back and saying, well, why are you wasting your time with that level 1 stuff? Well, because I'm level 1. That's because I need to learn these things first, because nobody's going to hire me unless I learn the fundamentals first. Now, some people learn those fundamentals very fast. They're in the help desk for 3 to 6 months, and then they're already off to do network administration, to do workstation management, to do server management, to learn Linux, to get cloud computing, to whatever it is. They're already working on that next thing. But it's that first jump out of the help desk is a good jump. And I think a lot of people close their minds to that. They look at the help desk as, what an awful job. I would never want to do this. I hate help desk type work. It's not what I want to do it as a career. Yeah, you're not going to do it as a career. We put you in the help desk to see if you're good at solving problems, see if you're good at remembering technology, and as you mentioned, see if you're good at talking to people. If there's one skill that for my entire career really describes your ability for upward movement, the upward mobility you have in your career, the one skill you take with you your entire career is your people skills. It's your ability to talk to other human beings, to communicate in a way with empathy, with understanding, with patience, in a way that you can communicate clearly with other people, to describe what you're wanting, what you need, and to be able to understand what people are telling you. Interestingly enough, this is more listening than talking, which is another thing maybe sometimes people miss. But the more time you spend on the interpersonal skills, I find the more leverage you have with your technology career. It is one that really made a difference in my career, because I started at an insurance company started in a computer operations, supercomputer operations, in a dark room at night, watching tapes go by and watching printouts come off a printer. Not much interpersonal required for that. So to get out of that, you have to now start working with people. My first big job out of college was field service. It was hopping in my car in the morning, going to a site, and trying to figure out what's wrong with this system. Well, that takes some interrogation. What problem are you having? What does it look like? Are you seeing any error messages? What do you have to do to solve the problem? What have you done in the past? Let's try this. You have to sort of have that conversation. You have to talk to people. This is an acquired skill. it eventually took me to a point working through all these technical roles where I started even taking technical marketing director roles, where I was communicating to the press, to analysts about technology that our company was releasing, and talking about really detailed technical topics in a way that anyone could understand. But when I started doing that, I realized I wasn't very good. And I was sort of stumbling around and dropping my cards, and I couldn't really figure out what to do. My company sent me to training specifically on how to do a presentation, which I thought I knew how to do. And then you go to a training class on how to do a presentation where they spend all day telling you what you're doing wrong. And then you start learning new techniques on how to be better a communicator. And I think if we spent as much time on communication skills as we did technical skills, we would probably have a different, the rest of the world would look at us differently. Because right now, whenever you see a smart technical person portrayed in media or in pop culture, it's always that nerd. Hi, I'm here from the help desk. I'm here to help you. They treat you like you're some kind of subhuman. It's really just ridiculous. When in reality, we're the same people at playing tennis, walking down the street, at the pub. We're doing the same thing everybody else is doing. We're the same human beings talking the same way that they talk. We just work with computers during the day. But in reality, we don't work with computers during the day. We work with people who happen to have computers. And if you can be very good at communicating those skills to other people, it's almost more valuable than the technology skills that you already have. If you've ever looked at somebody and said, how did they get to that level? They're not some technical genius. How are they the director of whatever they're directing? Well, they got there because they know how to communicate with people in a way that other people perhaps could not. There is a balance there, and you really need to be able to hone those skills, and you'll be honing presentation and communication skills for your entire career. I'm still doing it in my entire career. My videos today, hopefully, are much better than the videos I made 10 years ago, because you constantly have to improve on those. So my recommendation is to combine those things. You mentioned some really good ones like cloud-based certifications, certifications on networking. Those are all great certs to learn, and you should start focusing your efforts down one particular road. And if I had a recommendation, I would say find a niche, find a topic, and just learn everything you can on that topic. If AWS is interesting to you, go learn it. But don't just learn the basics of AWS. Learn everything you can. Be an expert in that area. This is obviously going to take months, if not years, to really hone your craft in that particular area. But what you'll find is you become so knowledgeable with that technology that other people want to use your skills and are willing to pay you more because of your knowledge, very niche knowledge in that technology. But then you also find, now that I'm done learning that, what's next? Okay, let's add security to the mix. Let's learn about SIEMs. Let's learn about next generation firewalls. How does that fit into the cloud piece? How can I orchestrate? How can I integrate with that API? How can I make these things dance around? Now you become even more skilled with more leverage to be able to ask a potential employer for more money. And then you've leveled up again. So if I had to, it's never one thing in IT. I always tell people, find the thing that makes you excited, find the thing that makes you interested in doing this, and learn everything you can about that thing, because I guarantee you somebody out there is willing to pay you more money because you happen to know everything there is to know about that thing. You just have to find the right combination of skills and potential employers and put those things together, and you've suddenly got that love connection, and you're suddenly leveling up and making more money. And it happens all the time. The opportunities are out there. The potential is out there. You just have to take advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate all of the information you have given. I really appreciate that. So thank you so much. It's a lot of good stuff to think about.
Thanks, Fred. I appreciate the call. Best of luck.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully I'll call back soon and I'll let you know of my successes because of you. So thank you again.
Looking forward to it. Talk to you then.
Goodbye.
One of the things that, if I had to tell people, and I see this all the time on on Reddit is everybody's very negative about the help desk. I really enjoyed being, I hate to say this, I really enjoyed being in my corporate help desk. I was not in a help desk. A lot of people think of a help desk as you got the microphone on with the headset, you're in a little cube or you're at home, you're answering phone calls. Hi, thank you for calling the help desk. How could I help you? Do you have a password problem? But what most of the time you're working for a corporation. I wore a suit every day because it was a financial company. So they made you wear a tie every day. Probably doesn't happen that way anymore. But you go to work, you're at a nice desk, you're working with other professionals, you're going through tickets. It's a very, very humane, non-stressed way of going through life. You got a problem you need to take care of. You call the user, hey, it's James calling. He says, here, you got a problem with the thing. I can absolutely fix that for you. Let's remote into your machine, or let me go up to that second floor and we can have a look at it. It was very, very fun way of going about your day. There was something different all the time, but you never stay at a help desk forever. As Matt in the chat room saying, do you just stay there all forever? No. The goal is to be at the help desk for 3 to 6 months. And in 3 to 6 months, you move up to the thing that you're interested in. So are you interested in, like Fred was doing? Fred got to be familiar. I think it was Fred that mentioned this, got to be familiar with the workstation management team in his company, and just sort of said, you guys doing stuff on the weekend? You need an extra set of arms? You need an extra set of legs? I can move stuff around. And of course they're going to say, yes, please help us. If you're interested, come on. And then you're meeting the people, you're understanding what their job is like, you're asking them more about what they're doing, you're getting some insight, and they're learning more about you and seeing if you're a good fit for their part of the organization. And then when there's an opening, who do you think they're going to call first? They're going to call you. Like, we got an opening. You'd be perfect for this. Why don't you come in and talk to us and see if this is a good fit? Great. That's the way it's supposed to work. The people who are managing the help desk want you to move up in 3 to 6 months. They don't want you to be there the whole time. Now, unless you're managing the help desk, that's different. You're in management. But your job is to bring people in, evaluate how they're doing, and then start moving them up into other areas. In fact, this is sort of your job regardless. The job you're in is temporary. It is. We don't have those jobs anymore where you go to a company and now you're working at that company in that job for 30 years and then you retire. We don't do that. In IT, you're on the 3-year plan. We call it the 3-year plan. You start working for somebody, maybe you move up a little bit in that organization, but after 3 years or so, you tend to move to a different organization. Very often, to make more significant money, you tend to have to leave an organization and go to a different organization. And that's usually what happens. In IT, there's a lot of upward mobility. So after 3 years, you move up to that next step. It just makes sense. My last job, though, I stayed there, I think, 7 years. I didn't move up, but we were a startup. It was a different scenario. It was a startup. We were sort of building it from the ground up, and then suddenly things starting to happen fast. But it takes years for those things to happen with a startup. And so I was there for 7 years. The company I was with prior to that, I think I was there and then I left and then I came back. I was a boomerang back to that company. So I think total, I was probably there for 10 years on and off. So it's not always the 3-year plan. Sometimes, or it could be said, maybe I wasn't making very good decisions about my career. That may be true too. But it was one that worked for me. And ultimately, it was the right idea because something happened right. Because my last job was with that next-gen firewall company, which was an amazing job, working with fantastic people. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for the right combination of things. In fact, it's one of those where at that point in my career, I really knew what I wanted to do. I really wanted to be that systems engineer. I wanted to be that technical person. Because when you start with a startup, as a systems engineer, as the company grows, I think I was the 95th employee of that company, and now there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people that work there. But at that time, there was a potential where Okay, you've been here for years. You know it. Now we need to start hiring more people. Do you want to be a manager? Do you want to do that? A lot of people do. A lot of people I worked with did go into management, which is great. But I am just not that's not my thing, not my interest. I don't know if I'd be a really good manager or not, but it's not what I want to do. So I'm like, no, I want to be the technical guy. I'm in the job I want. Let's just keep doing that. Put a manager ahead of me. I'm fine with that. And they did, and that's great. It worked out. So find the place that fits for you. Don't ever force yourself into a position that you don't want to be in, because there's way too many opportunities out here. There's plenty of jobs doing a lot of different things. And if you're patient and you're looking around for the right thing, you will absolutely find it. That's the real key. I think whenever I start looking at different options, sometimes you find one that just falls from the sky and suddenly here's a job opening, which is what happened for me with that next-gen firewall company. Sometimes, though, you got to go hunt it down, and it takes months to find the right fit. And you're going after it. You're looking around. You're jockeying for position. You're gathering more certs. You're doing more things just so you can find that perfect next step. Sometimes it takes a while, but it is out there. You just have to hunt around, be ready for it, and you will find the right thing. That's one of the fun parts about IT. One of the parts I love about this world of information technology is there are so many options available. The world is really your proverbial oyster. You can really find the right fit for you for what you're doing at any particular time. Well, that brings us to the end of another extended me talking a lot in the after show study group. I appreciate everybody being here. This has been a very busy week. We did this back to back. I'm so glad everybody was able to show up for this second day of Q&A. It's always fun when we do these. Come back next week. On Wednesday of next week, we've got a Network Plus study group where we'll do more of this, but for the Network Plus exam. And then the week after that, we got Security Plus as well. In the meantime, you can find me on my website. You can find me in Discord. We're around here somewhere. You can always find out something that's going on. So if a question pops up, hop into our Discord, ask some folks that are in there. We're all in there, and we'll all chime in with some idea or another with things that we could do. We appreciate you being here. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time on the A+ Study Group. Thanks, everyone.